pointing from energy to water, either water itself or the states that water can exist in, right? Solid, liquid, gas.
Yes.
It's one of the
Yes.
two things that you're drawing the arrow to. If you draw the arrow to water itself and you say energy is converting, perhaps in the sense of transmuting to something else, then the something else is going to be non-water. That's the only coherent way to talk about this, because if you're transmuting water, for instance, just the water, not the form of the water, but the water is becoming non-water. You say, no, 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 not that, not that. Okay. So then you draw the arrow to the forms that the water can be in, the states the water can be in, which is to say that energy is analogous to a form. It's not an essential thing. So then energy is a form of what? It's an incomplete analogy until you finally complete it, which is the point of my question.
Okay. So energy, for example, as an example where energy can be converted to mass, if you charge a battery, you have chemically stored energy. That chemically stored energy is now matter, is now mass. If you use that energy and convert it to electrical energy, then it's not chemically stored energy anymore, then it's electrical energy. That mass reduces. Therefore, you have the mass reduces. Therefore, you have converted mass now into electrical energy. Electrical energy is also converted into magnetism, so magnetic energy that may be, for example, creating another electrical field somewhere else, causes some electrons to move. That may, for example, be converted into heat energy. So all these different forms of energies can be converted to each other.
Okay. That breaks the analogy because
No.
energy, I'm telling you the correction. It breaks the analogy if you're drawing the arrow from energy to the forms of water, because energy, if it's analogous to forms of water, is a subcategory, not the base main category that consists of subcategories. But you went on to talk about subcategories of energy, which is to clearly convey that energy is the base main category that consists of subcategories. That breaks the analogy, which is
Yeah.
actually analogous to drawing the arrow of analogy to the water itself, not the forms thereof. But you said no, but now you're saying yes by implication.
Yeah, so this is exactly what this equation says. Mass is a form of energy as well. So kinetic energy, electrical energy, heat energy, kinetic energy, all that stuff, these are different forms of energy, as mass is itself as well.
Okay, so you're reiterating that, which is the thing I've refuted in the first place. So now you're just insisting on
No,
calling energy non-energy. You're saying energy
no,
is non-energy
no, I
because
He's
don't.
energy
not
is
saying
the
that.
ability to do things. It is not
No,
anything that's not that.
You're trying to
energy.
try to gaslighting that all the time, but I don't say that.
Not
Yeah, he's not saying
gaslighting. I'm
that.
not saying that you
You're
said it
Everyone's
verbatim.
saying
gaslighting the shit out of
You're
me.
just
we can
distorting
hear
what I
you,
just said.
Jay Gregory. You
You're
are
just distorting what I just
gaslighting
said.
him. He didn't
No,
say
it's not
that.
gaslighting. Let me correct you. Let me correct you. I didn't say you explicitly uttered these words. I didn't say that. What I obviously conveyed is this is what you're conveying. That given everything you said, this is what you're conveying. If you're going to be consistent, charitably interpreting, and logically sound, and all the whole nine. So if you say what you just said, you are saying that the energy, which is the ability to do things, is something else besides that. So that it necessarily entails that energy is non-energy. Because energy is not what you define to be mass. Energy is not inertia. Energy is not producing gravity. Energy is
No.
not quantity of matter or any given quantity of matter. It's not what energy
Inertia,
is. It's false.
mass is not inertia. Inertia is a property of mass.
Yes.
You can go with that
Mass
all you want to.
mass is a form of energy.
And what I said still stands. Like literally.
No, you are trying to gaslight that I say energy is not energy or can be converted into not energy. That is not true. Mass is a form of energy. Kinetic energy is a form of energy.
Dude, the equation is
Electrical
E
energy
equals
is a form of
MC.
energy. You can convert electrical energy into mass by storing it, for example, into batteries.
The equation is energy equals MC squared. That's what it is. That's the
Yeah.
proposition. So energy
That
is fill in the
this
blank. And the
equation,
fill in the
this
blank on the other
equation
side of the
tells
equation,
you
on the right-hand
this.
side of the equation, is non-energy.
Okay, there is also an equation for how much heat contains how much energy, or how much energy is contained in an electron, or an electron volt, or something like this, or how much, like in how do you say, what is the impulse, the English word for it, mass times speed, momentum. So there are also equations how much energy is in how much momentum. So you can all convert that to the base unit energy. That's
What
the
are you
whole
doing with
thing
that
of these
reply?
conversions.
What are you doing with that reply?
You are claiming a contradiction where no contradiction is. That is my.
You really are, Gregory.
There is a contradiction. Your
The reason-
equation says
What the
energy
fuck?
is on the other side of it is what is on the right-hand side of the equation. When you read it from left to right, energy on the
Yeah.
left-hand side of the equation, and then non-energy on the right-hand side of the equation. What's on the right-hand side of the equation
Energy
is not
equivalence.
energy.
It's energy equivalence.
So just to be clear, the thing about the batteries, the reason a battery, like in the framework that
It's energy equivalence.
So just to be clear, the thing about the batteries, the reason a battery, like in the framework that we're all taught, the reason a battery gets heavier when it charges is because it's gaining more charge than it had before, and charge is carried by electrons, which have mass.
There's no more electrons. The same
No,
amount of electrons.
no. The electrons are moved from the one side to the other
Correct.
one.
Right.
They are not leaving. They are not leaving the battery.
Yeah, you're not gaining any
or
electrons.
gaining into the battery.
What are you talking about? You don't want if you okay, hold on. What kind of battery are you talking about right now?
A lead acid battery, for example.
Any amount of battery of any even just chemical batteries that cannot be recharged.
Right.
Any amount of batteries. If you discharge a battery,
Yeah, they off
you have
gas.
electrons. Wait a second. You have electrons flowing from the minus pole of the battery to the plus pole of the battery, and they eventually equal out in charges on both sides. None of these electrons, after the discharging of the battery, has kind of left the circuit.
Yeah. When you okay. So to be clear, when you say discharge the battery, right? You have a wire that battery's hooked up to a load.
No, to itself. To itself. No load.
Hold on, bro. I'm trying to finish. When you discharge a battery, discharging a battery requires the battery touching something external. If the battery is entirely a closed system where you just have, no external influence on the battery, there's no such thing as a discharge. The discharge in this case would be a different definition. It would be only in the case of the chemical battery in which you neutralize the two sides, but that doesn't change. That would not change the mass of the battery. If you want to change the mass of the battery,
I got you.
Hold on. If you want to change the mass,
I understand what you're saying, and I want to give you a picture.
If you want to change the mass of the battery, you actually have to evacuate the gas by off-gassing it, which happens in lead acid reactions, or you have to.
Don't. You're just let him finish.
You have to wire transmit charge outside, dude. You don't take a closed system that's completely
You're saying
closed.
this doesn't mean it's
Let
true.
me talk, bro. Why is it that when I hop on the mic, you won't shut up? I've been courteous. You're trying to cut me off. Why is it that you think that a closed and a truly closed system, I'm not talking about like partially closed, I mean truly closed, we put the battery in a sealed box that's completely sealed in every way from the outside world, even any energetic impulse whatsoever, fully sealed. You can't just have the battery do work on its own self. That doesn't work. It can't perform work on itself.
You can. So if you just
can't perform
see,
work on
you have
yourself,
okay.
bro.
Can I respond now?
Yeah, you get excited.
So if you have wait a second, if you have a battery and that battery has a wire connected from the plus to the minus, and the only thing that is interrupting this circuit from being closed is a switch. So you have this charged battery, including the wire and the switch, and you measure the mass of that, and then you put it in the closed box, and then you flip the switch in that closed box. The battery inside of that closed box will discharge itself while the electrons flow from the minus through the wire to the plus. And in that case, this energy will be converted into heat energy. So the wire gets warmer while these electrons are flowing. The battery in that situation loses mass, and the air, surrounding air or whatever is there, gains mass because it gains energy. Now you have a warmer environment. That closed system together will have the same mass still because no energy has left this closed system.
Correct.
But the statement that you had before, that a charged battery has more mass because it has more electrons, is just false. There are no more electrons in that battery. It's just chemically stored electrons on a different part of that battery.
No, what it is, it's a field configuration, bro. You're taking potential energy, which is the bond energy in the lattice structure, right? Or in this case, in the separation of the charges. That's potential energy stored like a rubber band. Okay?
Yes.
When you separate those charges, it stores energy in the field configuration. When you restore back to equilibrium, the energy in that field configuration is separated. But that energy that energy in that field configuration is not an amount of matter. And it's not dependent on velocity.
That is absolutely correct. It's not an amount of matter, but it changes mass.
Because of the energy.
No, I don't think it changes mass.
Yeah.
Changing the field energy of an object does not change its mass.
Just to be clear,
you have put energy into that object, and that energy that you put into that object causes that object to gain in mass because you have converted the energy into stored energy, which is mass at that time.
Yeah, if I take an inductor, bro, if I take a big inductor, a big coil, and I induce it with a secondary coil, let's say I have a secondary coil. I take a primary and I induce a secondary, so the secondary now has a fat magnetic field around it. It doesn't change its mass. It's got energy stored in its field. Its mass does not go up. I can put it on a scale. I can turn my drive coil on, my sensor coil, which is the secondary coil, which is getting induced. My induced coil is not going to get heavier. Even though
the amount is tiny. That you're not going to be able to measure the change in energy because the mass change is tiny, but it's there. It's the same thing, by the way, if you burn a teaspoon of gasoline in a controlled environment and you measure precisely the byproducts of that combustion, it's going to weigh less, even in a completely sealed environment, if the energy escaped through like the form of infrared energy that left the container, but the byproducts are still going to weigh less because there's a loss of energy there. But it's a tiny amount. That's the reason why nuclear fuel is so efficient. It's a tiny amount of mass.
But this would mean that chemistry wouldn't hold because it would say, I know what the chemical formula of this object is. I'm going to tell you what its mass is, and your mass would be wrong.
Correct. Just the amount of matter is not sufficient to define the mass of an object. It's absolutely correct. You need more parameters. You need more parameters. For example, the heat. So the temperature of an object. For example, the charges of that object, or the charge potential in that object. Matter itself is not defining the mass of something.
Yeah, but check this out. In your equation that I put in the chat, E equals mc squared, which I expanded into the full form and showed you like the full form. Okay, 5:01, 9 minutes ago in the chat. In that relation, if the velocity component changes, it means that the energy changes, right? But we know that mass is an invariant quantity. Mass is the same in all frames. Okay? Mass is always invariant. Now, the amount of energy, if you take a relativistic position, then the amount of energy is not treated as invariant. It results in a proportionality to mass that's not frame independent. It's relative because V is relative. So if V is relative, then the energy is going to be relative. But we know that using a relative definition of energy doesn't work because if you talk about nuclear reactions converting mass into energy and vice versa, only the amount of energy an object has with respect to its velocity in Earth's rest frame will ever work to transmute that matter. You can't use the amount of energy in any other frame to transmute it. It has to be the Earth reference frame. That's the only reference frame that works to calculate the amount of energy necessary used for transmutation reactions, like nuclear reactions. So that means that the rest mass of an object in the Earth reference frame is the only valid frame to calculate energy in. This concept of relativistic mass is nonsensical. Now, if we have one true reference frame with which to calculate energy, then everything about Einstein's theory goes out the window. So we're left with a version of mass energy equivalence that does not get to invoke relativity.
Yeah, you lost me kind of halfway, but that the velocity part of it, I think, is again a misunderstanding of the equation. Of course, it's explained as a velocity, but it's basically just a constant.
Yeah, it's not.
No, it's not a constant at all, dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
No,
Exactly.
C is just the constant calculation or the conversion for constant between mass and energy.
No, E equals mc squared is the shorthand form because E equals mc squared is treating it as rest mass. It's what happens if you convert. If you change V to be 0, if V is 0, then it simplifies to E equals mc squared. If V is not 0,
correct.
Right, but that's my point, dude. Your conclusion is my premise. Thank you. V, if it is 0 in the Earth frame only.
No, and here you have a clear misunderstanding. V is a relative V compared to something else. So there is no absolute velocity.
Oh,
so something
gosh.
that
I literally just addressed everything you're saying in my initial statement, and you're acting like
anyway, you lost me anyway half track, so someone else can over.
They're doing the same thing to you they did to me earlier.
Okay, so are you trying to say that the rest mass is invariant of the transformations?
I'm saying that the rest mass is only valid if you consider it to be at rest in the Earth frame. Okay?
No, it isn't. The entire point of the rest mass is that it's the same regardless of what reference frame you pick.
Okay, but see, that doesn't make any sense. Something can't be at rest with respect to itself. That doesn't make any sense. That's just saying absolute space. You can't have a frame with respect to itself.
This is exactly what E equals mc squared says. It's in its own reference frame. If you take it from an external reference frame, then you have V unequal 0, and then how that makes sense.
You're misunderstanding with the definition of velocity.
No.
In Einstein's theory, there is no such thing as absolute rest or absolute motion. So when you say it's at rest in its own frame, you can't say rest without invoking a second frame, because that's what relative means, that you have to have 2 points. Yes, you do.
So
bro,
if
okay, you're out of your depth. Please exit the conversation. You have no idea what velocity even means.
So if you say, or if I define, let's say I'm running through the universe with, I don't know, 5,000 kilometers. And I define me, self, as my reference point. And I'm moving my hand. My hand is moving a little bit away from me and a little bit closer to me. In that frame, in my frame, E equals, this formula works with V being 0. But seen from the outside, V is not 0. Because relative to the other reference frame, there is actually a velocity, and that's where the whole time dilation comes with, and so on.
Oh my gosh!
So,
dude,
the Lorentz, you're forgetting about Lorentz. He's absolutely right.
How convoluted it is.
He doesn't even know what he's saying, bro. He's telling me you can.
He's saying exactly the truth right there.
No, Zanick, you don't agree with what he just said. Let me tell you why you don't agree. You don't even realize what he just said. I think you missed part of it. He literally just told us all that you could calculate something as being at rest, which is the same thing as a calculation of motion. Rest and motion are not different. Rest just means no motion. You could calculate something at state of motion without respect to a second point. So you don't need 2 points. You don't need something else to be relative to. He said you could be just at a state of 0 motion with respect to yourself. That's literally absolute space. That's a direct contradiction of relativity.
To you. That's exactly what it is. Relative to yourself.
Not you.
You don't know what that means, bro. I'm trying to tell you that's incoherent.
In a reference
it's
frame.
not.
It means
Yeah.
that
And another
it means
reference
that you
frame is moving, and that's where the Lorentz contraction would come into play.
With
What is
respect to
passion in
yourself
such a
means
convoluted
absolute
world?
space. That's what it means. You're
No,
acknowledging
with-
absolute space without realizing you're doing it.
with respect to yourself means that you're anchoring the axis of your coordinate system on yourself, but this
Right.
coordinate system is still relative. You can still pick a completely different one coordinate system. It's just that you picked one that is centered on you. So you will always have zero velocity in that coordinate system.
Correct.
Oh
Correct.
my gosh.
That's correct.
You can't be moving relative to yourself.
That's correct.
The
But for
reference frame.
example, I can also say my stretched
Oh
out
my gosh,
arm.
this is like
my
knocking your head on a wall.
My stretched out arm. If I'm not moving it relative to me, it's still addressed
Wonder why I
in
raised
my
my body.
reference point. But if I'm start moving it, it moves relative to me. So something can be addressed relative to me, or it can be moving relative to me. And me is always addressed relative to me because it's me.
Right. It's all
Oh
relative
my
to
gosh,
that.
you're
That has
what you're
nothing to
saying.
do
All
with
those words
absoluteness.
equals absolute space, Snooze, and you just don't
No.
realize what you're.
No, it
Yes,
doesn't.
it
It
does.
means a
Here
reference
again,
frame.
gaslighting. That
It's
has
a reference
nothing
frame.
to do
Hold
with
on.
absoluteness.
It's a reference frame defined. A reference frame is just a point, an observation for which you view motion. Wherever you view motion, that coordinate system is the reference frame. You can be in a reference frame that is relative to the center of your body, and everything's relative to it. You can have zero motion between your center of your body and some particle away from you in an XYZ coordinate system. So you're
Okay,
making it
Zanick.
confusing.
So that circle
Okay,
has
so-
repeated at least 6 times. Let's try this
Yeah.
question. See
So
what happens.
what happens when we get two objects? Just curious. What happens when I'm in one lab, I'm in one nuclear reactor, and I have two objects, not one, but two of them, and I need to combine them together to transmute them into another thing. Okay, so I need to perform a nuclear reaction with two objects. Okay, and I need to calculate their energy in the frame of the reactor where the reaction is taking place. You can't all of a sudden say, oh, I'm going to calculate two different rest masses and two different object rest frames that are both different. No, that doesn't work. You need one frame. And it has
So,
to be
like-
the lab frame.
Hey,
Let's try
you
this.
need one.
Let's try this.
I mean,
Wait. Let's try this.
Yeah, I don't think you really know what you're
Because
saying.
what also explodes everything is if the people who are asserting their assertions don't even have any epistemic basis for anything they're saying. All right. So, like, let me ask Snooze. All right. By what epistemic standard enables you to know any of the given assertions you just said on the subject with Piezo?
can we just all agree that we don't give a fuck about this type of discussion?
Yeah, I I
okay,
totally agree. And Gregory,
Wow, I didn't think he was gonna say that.
Gregory.
So what they just
Jesus Christ,
exposed is they don't even
Gregory,
care
Gregory,
to
you asked
discipline
me a
themselves
question.
to have an
Gregory,
epistemic.
you asked me a question. Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are you
that wasn't
there?
your voice?
Yeah, you asked me a question. And I just
Someone who
want to
said-
respond.
I just want to clarify. Someone who said we don't care about
what
the subject. That wasn't you who said that. I want to clarify because evidently you're saying I
Yeah,
confused
can
your
I
voice with someone else.
respond to your question?
Who's
Okay,
in
so
both?
you didn't just let me clarify. Fuck. So you didn't say we don't care about the subject. You didn't say that.
I want to respond that Jesus Christ is Lord. We're just talking to Embo and I think Zanick, and I think it makes no sense that you then ask me a question. So let them talk.
But you were in the conversation. What are you talking about? He was talking to you.
Because you're
No, I
changing
was
the topic.
I'm not changing the topic. I'm asking a
Yes,
question
you
about the
are
topic.
changing the topic. Jesus
I'm
Christ
asking a
Lord
question
and
about the
Embo were
topic.
just
No, I'm
talking
not.
about.
Amen.
They were talking about relativity, and you are now owning the conversation again.
Dude, just stop whining. I'm asking a question about the topic. The
No.
fuck? Say am. Just no, just whining. Stop. Now, if you don't want to answer, then just don't answer. Don't sit here and pretend like I'm just digressing flagrantly to some wildly different subject. I'm asking a question about the subject. The fuck?
Because this funny thing where he says amen every time his nickname is mentioned, kind of the same way as Muslims do with peace be upon him every time someone says the name Muhammad. It's really funny to me.
Now, notice how they just bursted into a tantrum as soon as I asked what's their epistemic basis for any of their assertions on the subject they just try to discuss with Piezo? They just threw a tantrum.
You're trying
That
to
clearly
discredit.
exposes they don't have any epistemic basis.
Why don't you discredit the argument rather than the people? That's ad hominem by definition. That's what you're really getting.
Just
at.
stop whining. Right? You just
I'm
expose.
not
that
whining.
You don't
You're the one
have
coming in.
the moral
You're the one
integrity
whining.
to exercise any
Oh,
self-discipline.
what do you guys
to
know
just
about this? You
answer
don't know
with any degree
anything.
of
I'm the
maturity
smart
about
one.
the issue. And now you're going to sit up here and try to verbally quibble with me when all I did was ask a question about the subject, and
Why?
then
Why are
you
you
burst
asking
into
that?
a tantrum. That's what happened. That clearly exposes that you don't know how to
Most
answer
of
the
us
question.
most of us have basic physics education in the institutions where we were programmed, where we were
You
indoctrinated.
don't know
okay?
how to
Is that what you
answer my
want?
question.
I
That's
did.
why you
I just
burst into a
answered it.
tantrum.
I just
I
answered
asked
it.
you, what's the epistemic basis for any of your assertions that you were trying to discuss with Piezo, and then you bursted into a tantrum.
You know with the conversation, bro. The conversation was in the middle. It was in the hottest moment.
Well,
Because we
the
all
reason,
heard you
to
at
be
least go
fair,
in a circle 6 times, and then let Piezo talk after this. We all heard you go in a circle with Piezo at least 6 times about the same issue. About no, this is what velocity is. No, this is what velocity is. We heard that at least 6 times. That circle repeated at least 6 times. So I'm like, okay, look.
Then
Let's
let
see
me
if you can break
respond
the
then.
circle. Just
The
stop.
foundation. The foundation.
Stop.
The reason.
I asked a
You-
question so that we can break
I'm
the circle.
answering it.
And
I'm
the
answering.
teacher
You want
asked,
to know what the epistemic? You want to know what the epistemic? You want to know what the epistemic basic is?
You didn't have to
for
say
us-
that while I was saying that. You could have waited until I finished.
because you keep on saying stop. The reasons that we formulated these beliefs and these ideas and reasons is because it's what we were taught and we learned about when we learned about basic physics in school.
Oh,
That's
just
why.
because your teachers taught you the doctrine. Okay.
Yeah, no, and the teachers taught. Yeah, well, they all were built on fundamental foundations of physics, based on before that mathematics and science, other things that give us the foundation for which these things are believed to be true and have evidence for being true. Now,
And
if
for
it
all you
was
know, they
not
could be
true,
wrong.
hold on. I know you can't wait to talk over me, but it's okay. I can take it. So, if it was not true, things like electron microscopes and things like nuclear fission and fusion reactions would not be possible, even conceivable. Yet they are. And we're staying very close to the predicted results and measured results of the things that are tested to validate these assertions that we have made
Incoherent
here.
doctrines don't produce any of the things that we apply in our
these explosions never happen. Nuclear bombs never happen. Nuclear reactors all over the world
Your
are not
incoherent
happening right
doctrines that
now.
we've discussed don't produce any things that we apply.
Laser radar guns don't work.
None of your incoherent
You're off the rails,
doctrines,
bro.
like just stop.
No,
None
because
of
he
your
wants to know.
incoherent doctrines,
He's
like
trying
I've
to
just
disrail
exposed,
us by
like Piezo just
gaslighting us
exposed,
and think we don't know what we're talking about.
necessary
Something
to
is basic,
apply
and
any
continues to
actual
talk over me
principles
as I'm
to develop
talking.
technology. People are so fond of this notion that you people are the exclusive producers of any and all.
Have
Especially
you
when we
done
talk about the
anything?
doctrines
With created
not
anything?
empirically
No. The answer is no,
verifiable.
Gregory.
So yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. We talked about one doctrine of yours, and I exposed it as a contradiction by implication after just a little bit of consistent with your terms and the definition.
Please, one at a time. I mean, at least that.
Thank you.
Thank God.
Now.
That was getting horrible.
All in together. Go.
Bro,
You guys
I'm
have the
dying
wrong
from
definition of
laughing
rest.
here.
I just to let you know, your definition of rest mass is wrong. I just put it in the chat that you are now refuted. So the rest mass is defined as the mass of a body who perceives the body as motionless. It's with respect to an observer. The mass of a body when it's not moving relative to an observer, not to itself, because the thing is in any other frame, right? If you calculated it in its own frame, you wouldn't know what the rest mass is because you have to be in your frame to measure the object. It just so happens that rest mass is always equal to the velocity of 0 in the Earth frame.
No.
So you
Those-
can't
light
get
of
away
these-
from this.
That's not
Okay,
right.
so
It's
those
not
those
just
def-
recent
that-
reputations.
those
Just
two
ask
Let's
you
summarize.
up
See if we can
the-
make some progress. In light of
Those
Peyton's
definitely-
recent
So you just
reputations, we have number one issue. Their
Okay,
rendition of
let's
E equals
go.
MC squared is energy is non-energy. That's a contradiction. Secondly, like he just articulated, rest necessarily entails a relative position to an external frame of reference, not in reference to the thing that is at rest. That's
Not true
incoherent.
at all. No, you're
Same thing with
incorrect.
velocity. You
If
can't have a
understand what
velocity just relative to yourself. There has to be an external reference frame that you're moving through in order
No,
to
it doesn't.
measure the velocity or any
That's
type of
not
motion.
true. That's not true at all. A reference frame is, by definition, a point coordinate system where you are looking at motion from. The position you're looking at motion from is considered the definition of a reference frame. The environment for
So when
which
you try to gauge your
are
speed,
observing,
you refer
always-
to yourself. You don't refer to the world that you're traversing through.
What the fuck,
frame.
Gregory?
The frame.
Could you please hold
You're
yourself?
looking at, you're looking at from the frame you are looking at it. The environment for which you view motion. Just stop for a
The
second. Take a
definition
breath.
says observer, Zanick. Look in the chat. It's not relative to itself. It's relative to an observer.
If
Yeah,
you're in
so
the
if the
same,
observer,
if you're
if
in
the
that reference
observer
frame,
and the
then it's
object are not moving towards each other, then they are relative motionless compared to each other.
correct.
So do you
So
remember
let's see if
earlier
you
when
can
you
be
said you don't
consistent
need
in
2 points? Hold on.
epistemology.
You remember earlier when you said you don't need 2 points, and now you're acknowledging you do need 2 points, 1 point being the object,
No,
another point being the observer? Yes, you
no.
said that. Do we need to
If the
rewind it?
the
Okay, so watch.
motion of
Let's
the
see if they can be
observer and
epistemically
the
consistent with
object
this
itself.
notion.
What the fuck, Gregory? Can I just answer to him?
Go
My
ahead.
God, behave yourself.
Go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
if the observer and the object itself are not moving relative to each other, the reference frames of these two objects is basically regarding to the motion identical.
Okay,
So
fine.
you don't need an external observer. There is
Oh
nothing
my
that
gosh.
no direction. There is no
Do you see the
direction given
disconnect from
in
your
the
second
rest
sentence
He
and
mass.
didn't
your
say
first to second?
external
No,
observers, News.
it is
He didn't
equivalent
say
to each other.
he didn't
You have
say he didn't say external observer. He didn't say that.
He did say that.
No, he
Bro.
didn't. He said relative to the observer. You're not paying attention.
So
Yeah,
Snooze,
relative to the observer
Snooze,
means the observer is
earlier,
an external one to the object.
Earlier, I said you need 2 points to measure motion because all motion is relative in Einstein's theory. You said no, you can measure your motion relative to yourself. And I'm saying, okay, how do you measure it? Well, you would have an observer that's not moving with respect to the object. Oh, you mean a second point? Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, you remember earlier when you said you.
point.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
So wait a second.
So
I give you the point that you need 2 points that are changing their position in relative to time. So our reference point is 0,0, right? So or 0.0 in a coordinate system. That is our reference point. The other point is also at 0.0 and it's not moving away from there. So
oh
A
my
is
gosh.
0, B is 0. That means we are in the reference frame of B. So A and B are equal. No one says B is not allowed to be 0. So an
See, this is
object
what
in its
happens when
own
you
reference
have in
frame
your
is
mind
by
that
definition
my
still.
opponent must be
Snooze,
wrong
I'm
and I
gonna
will not agree with
read
him on
I'm
any
gonna
point.
read this definition to you.
That's what
Rest
happens.
mass. The physical mass of a body as measured by an observer, which is not the body, who perceives the body as motionless.
Okay. So can I?
You need an observer at a different location than the object because two objects cannot occupy the same location at the same point in time. Necessarily a different point. You need an observer and the object to measure the object's motion.
No, you don't need an observer. I think the misunderstanding.
How are you going to do a measurement if you're not observing it, bro?
Who's
That's what a
measuring
measurement
if
is.
it's not an agent?
Holy fuck! I just started speaking, and at least 3 people just started speaking over me at the same single time. It's insane.
It's flagrantly wrong. Who's measuring if not a person?
So
or a device or an instrument or anything. Just some other thing.
Are you now coming with this shit? Like if the tree falls over in a forest and no one observed it, there's no tree falling over. You don't need a person to have mass or rest mass.
So how does measurement occur if a person is not measuring?
So a reference frame, it doesn't need to involve an observer in the first place. It needs to involve some kind of observer that can be in a completely different reference frame. And then by measuring the velocity, by this observer measuring the velocity and the position from him of some another object where he's going to define his next reference frame, he can know what kind of equations would happen in that second reference frame because he knows the velocity he measured it. So now
you're
he can
agreeing
make
with
the
me now.
transformation.
Thanks. You're agreeing with me.
Okay.
So let's establish this, right? Because this is just cerebral highfalutin. So we're walking down the street. Then we see the car coming toward us on the street while we're walking on the side path. Right? We can discern the car is moving because it's traversing through the world along the street. Right? Now imagine you just delete everything except the car. Right? Imagine just deleting everything except the car. Somehow you see the car and you hear the car. You have an experience of the car. Everything else deleted. Right? Now, say you're also a passenger inside the car. How do you know you're moving in this absence without a reference frame?
You don't, because you need a reference frame.
Okay. You hear that, Piezo?
No, he
But
was
a
agreeing
refer-
with me. Embo was agreeing with me. Snooze was not.
Okay.
But a reference frame, it can be centered on the observer.
But how do you refer to yourself in this scenario? How does referring to yourself inform you are moving or not?
It doesn't matter at that point. If there's nothing else, it's relative motion. If you have two objects and everything's removed, it doesn't matter if you guys are both moving with respect.
What doesn't matter?
It doesn't only matter
What
when you have
doesn't
that
matter?
third position. If you're in a reference frame, if you start up with a reference frame, that is you and you're sitting by yourself, and then suddenly a little object appears in the distance, and suddenly the entire reference frame, all the point coordinates evaporated except for you and that object, and suddenly you are moving toward each other. The only way you could be able to know whether you're moving or they're moving is if you accelerated or if they accelerated.
Okay, but we're not talking about absolute motion. We're just talking about relative
What's the last thing I said? Because he impulsively replied.
Forces.
I doubt
if
that
you
he
are
even
accelerating, you can
grasped
measure
what
it.
I just said.
If you didn't accelerate, then you know the object is moving toward you.
We're not talking about acceleration.
Dude, you just
how else would it start to move?
You just rev up your voice and you just won't let anyone slow you down to you even grasp the point.
It's funny you say that, Gregory, because you were talking and giving us a dissertation for half an hour. I said 30 seconds worth of words. If you have a reference frame, which is a point coordinate system, and you were in it, and there's an object away from you, how do your question was, how do you know that when it starts to move, that it's not you moving or it's moving if the entire reference frame is void of all other points except for that object and you? The way you would know that is you'd be able to measure acceleration. Your acceleration.
That's the point where you stop yourself, Zanick. That's not what I asked.
Toward you. That's how.
That's not what I asked. That's the point where you stop yourself. Right. So what I actually asked is, say, for instance, you're in the car. You're driving down the street. Then all of a sudden, the whole world is just deleted. Right? It's just void. How do you know you're moving or not?
You don't.
Right.
I mean, that depends on the reference frame. That's the entire point of relative motion, that your velocity depends on the reference frame.
You can't anchor a reference frame to a point in empty space.
You can.
No,
you can.
Literally, you want me to pull nonsense paper out for you, bro?
That's what a reference frame is.
You can if you define it to some points that are physical in some way. So let's say that
there has to be stuff.
Okay, let me you don't have any control over yourself. Let's say you have a tree. That is something physical. That is something tangible. And now you can define a reference frame that is centered on that tree. But what you could also do is define a reference frame that would be 10 meters above this tree. That's where the center would be. So the reference frame that would result from this, it would be literally floating in free space, just as you described.
Anchored to the train.
But the definition that was used to define it in the first place was using something physical. So yeah, you need something physical, but the resulting reference frame, it doesn't have to be directly anchored to that something physical.
Yeah, but it's still anchored to the train, bro. If the train didn't exist, you wouldn't have 10 meters above the train. That would mean nothing anymore. And I don't know why we're sitting here arguing about like the definition of relative motion. This is like It's crazy that we could spend this amount of time arguing over the
Because
definition of
questions
relative
are very-
motion.
Because the
Absolutely.
questions are a little silly. Hold on. If you picture yourself, you know what I really want to ask this question, and maybe it may or may not fit what you're trying to find out. But what if you're in space and there is you're in space and you just develop a point coordinate system? Call that your reference frame. Call it reference frame A, and you have all these points out there, full grid. Hold on, so full grid, and then suddenly this object appears, and it's sitting there motionless in the distance. It would be considered at rest as you are at rest because you're not moving. In this point coordinate system, you can measure it because you've already established this is a reference frame. You wouldn't know nothing would change in this reference frame unless you start measuring it and you're going through space. You could be going light speed. You know, we don't know. We don't have any idea. But if you start making a turn, if this reference frame is starting to be forced into another direction, you'd have an acceleration, and then all the laws of physics would then not apply because you start seeing weird things. If you wanted to throw something to this other dot, or if you rolled the ball, if you had a floor in front of you, that kind of thing.
Zanick, I'm not disagreeing with you. You don't realize that as soon as you invoked a second object, you proved my point.
Well, I guess none of us, I think, really understand. I understand your point, why you need 2 points. And I think I would agree with you. You need to have another position to know either this reference frame with all these points. You have to know where they are. If you don't, you just have this object. Then you need that other object to know if you're equally at rest with it or in motion with it.
It's this simple, Zanick, and you're agreeing with me. You and Embo both agree with me, but it's this simple. I'm going to just dilute it down. Einstein says all motion is relative. Now you have to say relative to what? The answer cannot be yourself
each
or
other.
else
Each other.
Yes,
each other.
Other things, right. Every object is measured relative to another object. That's what that means.
Yes, it does.
I would like to respond here. I would still disagree. It's relative to something that is correct, but let's just assume, for example, you and me are just in our spacesuit and we are just flowing through space with high velocity. But we have the same velocity. Yeah? We are 5 meters apart, and you relative to me are not moving, even though we both relative to our spaceship where we just get, I don't know, thrown out of, we are moving fast. So now I'm just beamed away. I'm not there anymore. You're still moving with the same speed, or relative to your ass or relative to yourself, you have never changed your velocity. There was no acceleration involved when you just blipped me away. Before, I observed you as non-motion, but now that I'm not there, you have the same non-velocity as before compared to me before. So also compared to yourself. It's absolutely no problem to measure a velocity of something in the reference frame of that thing. It's just simplifying the fact.
It's a self.
How did you establish it?
Malformed.
How did you establish
it
it without something else to relate to?
It's already defined by definition. That's exactly the thing.
Sentence.
You don't need two things to define that two things are not moving relative to each other.
Right.
If you have one thing, if you have just one thing, you know that one thing is not moving relative to that one thing. It's just by definition.
Okay,
your notion is wrong. It's a self-redundant, malformed proposition.
No, it's not.
Relative to yourself is not coherent, Snooze. That's not what Einstein means when he says all motion is relative. You're invoking a custom definition that is outside of the framework of established physics to prove your own point. You're actually disagreeing with the paradigm you're attempting to defend.
No, I'm absolutely agreeing with Einstein. That's because for yourself, time and the speed of time is always the same. And for yourself, all other speeds have a maximum of light speed. But if you would travel with three quarters of light speed in one direction, you would still feel time very normal. But if you then pass someone that is in their own reference frame still, and you pass it with 3/4 of the speed of light, they would see your clocks behaving different than your own clocks. That's the relative
principle, your
part
notion
of it.
is incoherent, no matter how many times you
No,
stubbornly repeat it.
it's not.
Referring to yourself cannot inform you that you're moving.
That's correct. Because refer to myself,
Piezo's
I'm
refutation.
always
You just did
No, the
correct
thing
to
is,
Piezo's refutation.
Gregory, now you're interrupting. I just responded to you and you're interrupting again. Referring to myself, I'm always still. That's the whole thing of that definition.
So there's no point in you saying that. It's a truism, which is a concession to his refutation.
But that's why you can also measure the mass of an object in relation to itself. If you then put it to a relation to something else, or the energy of something in relation to something else, then you will have the motion as well.
See, you just said a reply after I just told you that what you just said is a concession to Piezo's refutation. You just said correct after I said to you, referring to yourself cannot inform you that you are doing locomotion. That's Piezo's refutation, and you said correct to it.
Okay.
Yes, because referring to myself, I'm always still.
Can I just clarify something, because I think my position was wrongly interpreted? I actually have the same position as Snooze. The only thing I agreed to is that you need a reference frame to measure motion relative to. But I've never agreed that this reference frame has to be moving in relation to the observer. It could be as well anchored at the observer. Then you still have a reference frame. It's just a reference frame where the observer has zero velocity. So yeah, you can. From definition, the observer would have zero velocity in that reference frame. You're still measuring it relative to the reference frame, but the reference frame is the observer's own reference frame. You can absolutely do that.
Yeah,
So
totally.
Piezo, are they where they should be now, Piezo? You must be. Oh no.
Yeah, sorry, I was muted. I just, I mean, if we can agree that relative motion requires two objects, then we can move on. Because to say otherwise is just absurd that we'd be arguing this along with people who claim to understand physics.
Yes,
I'm
I agree with you. Relative motion needs two things that are move compared to each other. Rest doesn't. Motion does, rest does not.
Actually, I disagree even with that, right? Because when you already have some single object, when you already have some single physical object, like let's say myself, then you could define the second reference frame that would be your reference for measuring the velocities just by using yourself. You're just saying, I define a reference frame that is moving, let's say, at 10 meters per second relative to myself to the east. And in that reference frame, my velocity is 10 meters per second to the west, in the opposite direction. And this reference frame would behave as if there was hypothetically an object that is moving at that velocity in that direction, but I don't need to. The only thing I need to know is a one physical object that would be some reference that would allow me to anchor this abstract coordinate system into physical reality, like myself. And then I can do a thought experiment. What if there was an object that was moving at this velocity in this direction or at this acceleration in relation to that one single physical object? And that is my reference frame.
I agree with you that you don't need two physical objects, but still then you would have 2 points. You would have yourself as 1 point. Let's define ourselves as a point mass or something like this. And then you would have the center of the reference frame as another point. So once something is moving relative to something else, you always have 2 points. The reference point and the point of the thing that is moving. And then the time over that position changes. That is basically the motion. But at rest, you don't necessarily need 2 points, because the point of reference and the point of the object could be both 0 at the coordinate system of that reference frame.
Absolutely. In order to define velocity, you need an object that will have this velocity and the reference frame in which you will be measuring it. But in order to define this reference frame, you only need one single physical object, some physical reference.
Yeah, and if you have the velocity greater 0, you will have 2 different points at some point in time. If the velocity is 0, it can also be just a single point.
No, it can't be a single point. That doesn't make sense. If it's any non-zero value, you measure it the same way as you measure a zero value. It's the same measurement. Rest is just v equals 0. It's not a separate thing. Rest is a measurement of velocity, and the measurement yields a velocity of 0. That's the definition of rest. You're like trying to treat rest as like a fundamentally different thing than motion.
It's as fundamentally different as 0 is different to 1. You can divide any number through any other number except of 0.
You aren't dividing velocity, you're measuring it.
Still, 0 is a specific exception to all other numbers,
Here's what I'm gonna do.
as rest is a specific exception to all other velocities, because in rest the position does not change over time. That is a specific case of velocities, which means over time the point that you are referring to stays at the same point.
Yeah, you're just repeating.
I'm in my
you're
last
just repeating your erroneous definition over and over.
I'm in my last part. If you have motion, you can start at the point 0 with your object, and over time that point 0 becomes point 1, and then point 2, and then point 3, which means still you can pass through the center of your reference frame. There is nothing preventing the object that you are measuring being at any point in time at the 0 coordinate of that reference frame. And if you just stop moving there, then that point of the object is the reference frame.
And what's
you can't
even... Okay, go on.
Yeah, he's saying like, oh, I'm going to measure with respect to a reference frame, which I just define an origin at. But it's not, the origin isn't me. I can move to the origin, but the origin isn't necessarily me. I can move away from the origin. But defining an origin in empty space without an anchor doesn't make sense. And when you measure your velocity, you can't measure. It's not possible to take a measurement with respect to empty space.
No,
you have to have something to anchor it.
So
okay,
in my
look,
reference frame,
I'm still talking. You just complained about me interrupting you. Stop. So if Embo, if you would like to discuss science, at least for now, or on this topic, because you haven't been crazy, or Zanick, that's fine. Snooze, you are just like arguing with you about this is a waste of everyone's time and is not beneficial to anyone. You are objectively wrong about your definition of motion. You don't agree with any established paradigm of physics, not the Einsteinian paradigm, not the Newtonian paradigm. You have your own definition, and it's nonsense. So I'm not going to engage with you anymore. It's a waste of my time, and I have better things to do with my life than argue with you about something you're objectively wrong about.
Yeah, that's fine. This is definitely not objectively one. You're very subjectively here, and I'm absolutely agreeing with the paradigm.
Objectively.
So, I think the issue here is that when we're talking about reference frames, we mean two different things. In your perspective is something where a physical observer is and where you can measure motion relative to measure motion. That's a very important word because that implies some kind of physical measuring instrument that would be in that location and that would be measuring a motion of some object over time. But what physicists mean when they talk about reference frames is, and what they mean by velocity is not something that has to be necessarily measured in that reference frame. If you can measure it in a different reference frame, and then by knowing how much this other second reference frame moves relative to this first one where you have a physical observer, then you can not measure but calculate what velocity that object would have in that second reference frame. We also use mathematics and we use transformations that we can prove that they work, that they are equivalent. And we can know what kind of velocity an object would have in some reference frame, even if there is no physical observer there. Because why? Because every time we actually place a physical observer there, then it confirms our predictions. So the problem here is that reference frames, by physicists, they are understood as abstract coordinate systems. They don't require a physical observer there. So when we talk about velocity, like an object having some velocity in some reference frame, it doesn't have to be a result of a direct measurement. It can also be a result of a calculation of some other measurement in some other reference frame.
So it sounds like a conflation, not necessarily within an individual's rhetoric, but it sounds like just a passing of ships in the night, conflating ontic things with the epistemic issue. And this happens very often. What I mean is, you have the objects themselves, and you have the preconditions to know anything when trying to discern whatever given facts about them. So it's like a contrast between the material objects, right? I'll paint the setting. So we're in that car, right? We're in a yellow car. We're on the street. And all of a sudden, everything except us in the yellow car we're in is deleted, and now it's just void, right? So it's just you, it's just that thing in void, in contrast to the previous state where you had a world that you were in, right? The external reference frame, a plethora of things in an instance, but even just one thing, right? Or in contrast to the abstract, the abstract concept that there's these points, these coordinates and correlata, with or without a plethora of material things occupying volume, right? That's
the energy of all these objects, or the mass of all these objects. You have to use the energy of all these objects, or the mass of all these objects. You have to use the rest mass of these objects in the frame of your reactor, which is stationary on the Earth. Thus, it's the Earth reference frame, the lab frame. You can't take simultaneous rest mass measurements in separate frames. They wouldn't be simultaneous by definition. In order to get them all done in the place where the reaction's happening in one coordinate system at one point in one time, they all have to be measured relative to that point, and it just so happens that their rest masses are computed accurately in the Earth frame. If you were to do the reaction in the Earth frame, but you were to use the the mass that would be measured in some frame where the stuff is like flying around, and your measurement device obviously can't be flying around because your calculation is in the reactor, then you would come up with some amount of energy that would be the rest mass energy plus the energy of motion relative to you, which would give you an incorrect amount of energy. Now, one might argue and say, okay, but you could just treat yourself as if you were in the frame where the object's not moving, and I would say fair. But the problem is...
Can you stop for a second to have a quick question? Are you insinuating that, are you pointing to possibly that we're moving through the universe and the Earth is rotating and then we're doing the reaction, we're trying to measure the energy? Is that where that's going, or is this something... Why are you mentioning something moving around looking at this reaction?
Well, quite the opposite. I'm drawing... There's a connecting point. I got to establish the first point to get the connecting point. So the first point is that actually there's not moving. It's in a state of rest, right? And only with respect to the frame, the Earth reference frame, can the rest masses of multiple objects all be used at the same time in order to, correctly predict and math out a nuclear reaction, which implies that this Earth frame is a preferred frame. And then once you are able to correctly math out these nuclear reactions in this reactor frame, which is stationary on the Earth, then you also come to the conclusion that, okay, well, when we talk about mass energy equivalence, E equals mc squared, right? We talk about mass being invariant, but mass being rest mass, which is mass where the observer measuring the mass is not moving with respect to the mass, so in other words, V equals 0 in that long form equation I gave you, right? Then it would also imply that the V itself has to be with respect to the same place that the rest mass was measured, which is Earth. So if you have an Earth established reference frame, it gets rid of the idea of energy being a variant quality. Because if we know that mass is invariant, then energy has to be invariant as well, or velocity has to be absolute, one of the two. In which case, if velocity is absolute, then it still yields energy being invariant at the end of the day. Otherwise, you have a definition of mass energy equivalence in which you have an invariant mass but a variant energy, and it becomes incoherent.
How is mass going to be variant? Are you saying it's attributed to mass moving in your frame, in that inertial frame? Are you talking about an inertial frame or a non-inertial frame? You're talking about inertial frames, as I imagine.
The Earth frame is an inertial frame. Yep, Earth frame.
It's not, but it's a good
It's not an inertial
approximation.
frame, but I mean, why, are you just trying to find an Earth frame as in your lab frame? Is what you're really saying there?
Yeah, the lab frame is. I'm saying the lab frame is a truly inertial frame, and it has to be a truly inertial
the Earth
frame.
frame is not a truly inertial frame. That's for sure.
It is.
How is it?
certainly
How is that? Can you measure it to be that?
Yeah,
improve
every
it.
attempt to measure Earth's motion has failed.
No.
That's not true. Why would you say that? That's I could lift you 10 accredited and numerous
Oh my gosh,
multi-millions
Zanick.
of hold on, multi-millions of tests that are in complete contrast to that statement. How can you validate that statement that no measurement has been made? What are you using that as your foundation for
Okay,
that
so
statement?
please provide me one singular piece of mutually exclusive evidence that the Earth is moving around the sun.
That's not what the question was.
Yeah, that's changing the claim.
That's not the question. We talk
If-
your
That's not
inertial.
a part
The
of
Earth
your
is an inertial frame.
cosmological order that
So
the Earth is moving
specifically
around the
address
sun.
the Earth being in an inertial frame. That the Earth is
if
being on. Just give me that. No, don't talk about the Earth going around the sun. I'm talking about Earth rotation. Even just Earth rotation would probably be enough at this point in time, right? That's what we're talking.
I will just specify something. Even let's say the Earth wasn't rotating around its own axis, so once per 24 hours, and it was only rotating around the sun. In that case, the Earth's frame would be still inertial according to relativity. So this claim that the Earth is a non-inertial frame, it requires not measuring the motion around the sun, because that still would be inertial according to relativity. It's measuring the one around its own axis.
Doing locomotion is not inertial, not moving.
What do you mean?
Doing locomotion is not moving.
Doing local motion.
Translation.
Locomotion.
Okay.
How do you not recognize that term?
I couldn't hear you. You're really quiet. Are you eating something? I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, doing locomotion, LOCO motion,
Right.
is not moving.
It's not moving. Okay. What you say? It's moving. Doing locomotion is moving. Is motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's silly to say if the Earth didn't do axial rotation but did orbit around the sun, it would be inertial in the sense of not moving. It's wrong.
That's
obviously.
not what inertial means.
I know.
Inertial can be moving. Inertial can be moving and it can be not be moving. Is right. It's the same, right? They both can be true.
Well, under Einstein's definition, once again, which is what we're discussing, and you can't use that definition, which is in contention, as the proof of the definition.
If you're inertial, you see in an inertial frame. Let's see. If you are in an inertial state, can you be moving?
I mean, if you do,
you just missed a point.
You can be moving. You can be inertial and still be moving.
You just missed a point. You just missed a point.
Maybe I did. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not going to bother recalling because it's just going to be a quibble about. No, I didn't say that. No, I said that. It's like
no, I'm not. I'm just curious. I'm really curious what you said. I'm saying that would you agree that you could be inertial and be moving and not moving?
Yes, because inertial is just resistance to motion. It isn't not moving necessarily.
No, inertial state, meaning that you can still be in motion, doesn't mean just means you're not accelerating. In other words,
what I said is correct. It's a resistance to
motion. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just making sure we saying the same thing.
Okay, I guess so. The point is that if you want to, use this relativistic definition and impose it upon the scenario of, the transmutation and energy being very in or not, even though mass isn't, then you have to first establish the principle of relative motion on its own. Like absolutely relative, not versus absolutely preferred frame, absolute space, like Newtonian versus Einsteinian. Einsteinian motion, if you want to establish that, then you would need to prove that the Earth is in motion in some type of absolute way, right? Because you can't say all motion's relative and say, okay, well, show me the motion. And you say, oh, I can't because it's just relative. I can't show you the thing you want because then you're not proving your definition. You're just reifying it. You see my point?
Yeah, the
I
Earth
think
is
that
actually accelerating around the barycenter, for example, of the Earth-Moon system. That's because why you have an um, opposite side tidal wave to the Moon. So you don't only have the Moon tidal wave, so the water that is attracted to the Moon. You also have the Earth center that is attracted to the Moon and is wobbling around, and that gravitation or that acceleration can be measured. Also, you can measure the rotation of the Earth by multiple experiments and multiple measurement devices. So we can therefore show that the Earth is in motion. Showing that the Earth is actually moving around the Sun or the Sun around the Earth, that is then again just a definition point of view of the reference frame. But also the Earth itself is moving in relativistic ways, not all on a straight path. Only the barycenter of the Earth is on that straight path. So the gravitational center is on the straight path. Everything left and right of that center has actually acceleration.
Okay, so you say that, however, you cannot measure Earth's translational motion. Now, this
Yes,
translational motion is actually no, you can't. That's what the point of the Michelson-Morley experiment in your paradigm's interpretation is. If you acknowledge that you can, then Michelson-Morley would show motion in your experiment or in your paradigm. So you either have to say
Michelson-Morley showed the motion of the ether, or wanted to show the ether motion, not the Earth motion.
it just proved that there
There
was
it is.
motion
There it is.
through
There it is.
a medium. That's
See, Piezo?
what it proved.
And hence the whole
Okay, hold on a
rigmarole that we've
second.
already went through.
Yeah,
Just to
it's like a
clarify
million
this, to
times.
fast forward, yeah, the whole rigmarole where I go take them, where I ring them through the ring about Mickelson Morley, and then they just refuse to concede. So if you just fast forward past that, that's a stale. That's another not stalemate because we're not equal. It's another wall that we crashed
They
into.
Zanick-
basically thought that they could determine the direction they're going around the sun, that direction was faster than the other direction that was not going toward the sun at a right angle, and they would have some difference in the speed of light, basically.
Zanick, can I
in
trust you?
the interference result, but they didn't have that, so they said, okay, well, there's nothing that we're moving through that's showing this motion. They already thought that they were moving around the sun. They just couldn't measure it via the ether.
Yo, brother Zanick, can I trust you to operate in good faith and answer some
Sure.
These are going to be very straightforward questions. Just some yes or no questions concerning Michelson-Morley.
Sure.
Okay. Is it true? And you can argue from like your paradigm, which is fine. I don't need you to say take a paradigm. You just take the mainstream science view. Okay. But then you still have to answer with regard to common sense. Okay. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. Is it true that the Michelson-Morley experiment failed to detect Earth's motion?
No.
I'll give the reason in a second, but it did not detect 30 kilometers a second, correct?
It did not fail to detect Earth's motion.
Okay. Is it true that
wasn't his
the
point.
Michelson-Morley is it true that the Michelson-Morley experiment did not detect 30 kilometers a second?
It did not determine or did not detect 30 kilometers per second through a medium.
Dude, this is not the gotcha. This is not the gotcha, bro. This is the part we're supposed to be
See?
agreeing on right now. Like, can you not just
See?
say yes or no? Like, I'm not tricking you right now.
Well, that wasn't the point of the experiment. They were trying to see if
This is
whether
the
they
wall.
had a medium. Okay, go ahead. Maybe
This is the
ask it
wall.
again.
Is the Earth moving 30 kilometers a second around the sun?
Yes, it is.
Okay. When they performed the Michelson-Morley experiment, did they register a French shift equal to 30 kilometers a second?
No.
Okay. Is the reason they did not register a French shift 30 kilometers a second because there is no ether?
Yes.
Okay. So, therefore, the reason that they were not able to detect a French shift is because there was no ether.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in 1927 and 28, Michelson Gale Pearson detected a French shift.
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. That French shift detected 15 degrees per hour.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So did that French shift require there to be an ether?
No.
So interferometry can detect friendships with or without an ether.
Yes.
Okay. So an ether is not necessary for an interferometer to register a friendship.
Acceleration is.
Yeah, I just wanted to add this as well. This is the rotation of the Earth is measured acceleration in a high magnitude compared to the rotation of the Earth around the Sun.
Correct.
So also the Earth's surface, which is not the barycenter of the Earth-Moon system, recognizes motion around the Sun, and that can be measured by very, very sensitive gravimeters nowadays.
Okay,
But
gotcha. Let
then
me finish my thing.
when Nichols and Maury did their experiments, they were unable to detect that part of the acceleration
Gotcha,
because
Steve.
their
I'm almost finished.
experimental setup was way too small or too how do you say inaccurate to detect it.
Okay, so but an ether is not necessary to detect a phase shift with interferometry.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Because you're basically shooting something that is moving out of the way by the time the light hits it. That's what the whole idea behind phase shift is.
So hold on. I'm going to go back now. So you acknowledge that an ether is not necessary to register a friend shift. Okay. And you acknowledge that the Michelson-Morley did not register a friend shift, but you said that the reason it didn't register a friend shift is because there's no ether.
Yeah, because for those.
Hold on, I'm asking Zanick, Snooze. I'm asking Zanick. You can. Let me ask Zanick.
Yes, that friend shift was going to be reliant on a medium that was going to have to be required for the light to move through, and that did not happen. So it did not measure a friend shift based on the ether not being there.
Okay, so once again, you said that the reason Michelson-Morley did not detect a friend shift is because there was no ether. But then you said that interferometry does not require an ether to register a friend shift.
Correct.
So then if it does not require an ether to register a friend shift, then how could the ether be the reason that Michelson-Morley did not register a friend shift?
Because as was mentioned, there's an acceleration they were measuring for the Michelson-Gale-Pearson experiment. They were using an acceleration, which is the same exact principle. Hold on, which you're trying to conflate this reason why there would be a friend shift in the Michelson-Morley test, which means, i.e., maybe the definitionally called delay. This delay could be called by required to ether, or this delay. Hold on. This delay that misses the target, which gives you the friend shift, could be caused by an acceleration. So the acceleration is why we have the friend shift in the Gale-Pearson. The delay can be caused by two completely different concepts, and that's what you're trying to conflate to make it seem like
I'm not finished.
Okay, maybe I'm presupposing what you're going with this.
You're conflating. He's distinguishing.
I'm not finished. I don't fully agree with you, but I'll still play into it, right? Okay. So now you're saying that the reason Michelson-Morley didn't detect a friend shift is because there was no ether, but not just because there was no ether, because there was no acceleration, and you needed an ether to be able to measure that acceleration.
Well, say the last part of the sentence again? No, I mean, I almost said yes, but then
in order to measure acceleration, do you need an ether?
No.
Okay. So is the Earth accelerating around the sun?
No.
The Earth's not accelerating around the sun.
Well, that's kind of a loaded question.
Heresy, according to your
the reference frame you're looking at it from. It's actually falling around the sun. It's actually
heresy according to your worldview.
So isn't acceleration a change in the magnitude or direction of a velocity vector?
Yes, and you have a change in velocity at the apexes of those seasons, but
it's actually continually changing, right? Because the Earth's always going in a elliptical orbit.
It's an elliptical orbit. It's also
so it's continuously accelerating at every point in time forever.
Velocity-wise.
Both the direction and the magnitude are always changing at every point in time, continuously.
It is in Newtonian dynamics. The issue here is the conflation between the Einsteinian model and the Newtonian model, because Newtonian model assumes Euclidean space. So in order to change direction, as seen by an observer who doesn't see the fourth dimension, you would need some kind of force, the centripetal force that would be curving you and accelerating you towards the sun all the time continuously. But if the space-time itself was curved, then you can travel in a straight path in that curved space-time, so without an acceleration, and an observer who cannot see that curve because he cannot see the fourth dimension would perceive this as a curved line, even though the line is straight, it's just that the space itself is curved. That's why it's not acceleration in Einsteinian mechanics.
Yeah, it's following a geodesic. So in the Newtonian world, it's actually following a straight line, a straight path, even though it is elliptical. So
so it's both accelerating and non-accelerating.
It depends on the model.
Yeah, it depends on. Yeah.
Well, I asked if you could present a measurement of the motion around the sun, right? Because that's not based on a model. A measurement is physical. Because if all you have is a model, then why should I ever believe you? You should have to be able to measure it. Otherwise, it's a religion.
You started off saying there's no motion, no tests have ever been conducted to show the motion of the Earth. And I was talking about rotational motion. And you jumped immediately to the sun, to the Earth around the sun. I wanted to start, take baby steps and talk about the thousands, the millions and millions of tests that are done every day to prove that the Earth is rotating.
Okay, let's move towards a conclusion now. Okay. We've got enough of a groundwork established now. Okay. So now you are agreeing that the Earth is rotating and it's orbiting, right? And its orbit, it's both accelerating and non-accelerating, depending on your definition of motion. I said that, okay, if I don't accept your definition just because you say so, I would need it to be proven to me with a measurement, right? You can't just propose a definition and expect it to be accepted. You should have to prove that. So your proof would have to be a measurement. But the very problem is there is no measurement demonstrating the orbital component, which is the point of contention. You can't say, oh, we measure rotation, therefore it's orbiting. That doesn't make sense.
No, I think most people would acknowledge there are probably other sensitive instruments that have taken measurements of the Earth's orbit. I don't really know what those are, but I'm guessing that there are. I don't need to tell you because I don't know. But I do know through optical measurements, we can then discern between us being stationary and with the sun not moving, or us moving around the sun. And those results of those tests optically are basically laws. The orbital mechanics.
Can you give me an example of one of these tests demonstrating Earth's orbital motion?
Just as something as simple as the seasons, the distance to the sun, how it changes, our rotation, which is actually a fundamental foundation for that conclusion. If we didn't rotate ourselves, we wouldn't be able to discern that we're obviously also rotating around the sun in an elliptical orbit. So with our rotation being by the Michelson-Gale-Pearson test, and with our optical experiments, we can then say between those two, we have a high level of confidence that we are in motion around the sun, falling around the sun in a geodesic path.
Piezo.
1 second. Yes, up.
May I rebut that and then swing it right back to you? This one reply, because I think we're on the same
mutually
page.
Exclusive part, like
Like
that's what I was
appealing to seasons. It's just what you're doing is you're interpreting that that category of phenomena through the cosmic lore that you've been indoctrinated into, right? Seasons changing is not exclusively indicative of the notion the Earth is doing axial rotation or that it's doing orbits around the sun.
Okay, I'll clarify that point then. I didn't mean just seasons.
I wanted to mutually exclusive.
Hold on. I was just in the middle of a sentence. Hold on. So I meant that very loosely, and I think people could then know what I mean. I mean the position of the sun in the sky, and that the path which the sun takes in the sky throughout the year.
So because we see the sun moving in the sky, therefore the Earth is orbiting.
The way that it moves in the sky and the fact that we do rotate that between
But
those
wait,
two,
the fact
gives
that
us
we
the
do
fundamental
rotate.
foundation for the evidence of the Earth also
You heard that?
rotating around
Yeah,
the
I heard
sun.
it, but once
Beg
again,
the question.
yeah, but I don't got to get to that point yet, right? I don't got to get to the rotation yet, because even if it was to be true, which we haven't gotten to yet, it doesn't prove the orbit, right? So the point
It's
is,
still strong evidence for it, and without the rotation, it'd be a little weaker, a lot
Okay.
weaker argument.
okay,
With the
is it
rotation,
not
we
possible?
definitely see that. Go ahead.
Is it not possible that the Earth could be rotating but not orbiting?
Very improbable, highly improbable.
So where's the
Which is to say
mutually
it's
exclusive
possible.
evidence of the orbit?
The path of the sun in our sky,
That's
along with
not
our
mutually
rotation.
exclusive.
You can't. How would you have the Earth rotating and the sun moving around? It'd be kind of a bizarre assumption that we're rotating, yet the sun is
Zanick, what was
moving
his
its
question?
position in our
Zanick, what was his
sky.
question? What was his question, Zanick?
So
What was
if
the
I was to take a geocentric solar system where the
Mhm.
Earth is in the middle and everything is revolving around the Earth, and then so that's my position, right? You have a geocentric solar system, and I once again, it's in this conversation. That's my position. I don't need to give you the full every position I hold, but I'm just saying, in the purposes of the conversation, that's my position right now, right? Okay,
Yeah, I get it.
so
I totally get it. I
okay,
just think that
so
the evidence is important because we have all sorts of strange retrograde orbits of of Mercury and Mars. We have the position of the sun doing the linear type of motion in the sky over the seasons. All that
but that's
points to
not
rotation, but
exclusive
it's
to
not
anything.
absolute. Sure, you could have this Earth that's rotating in
And
the
you're
center of
interrupting
of
Piezo
this
to
solar system,
acknowledge
and the
what he said,
sun
dude.
somewhere out there,
You have a
who knows
problem.
where, and all these things are
Zanick.
the right plots. Well, that wouldn't
Zanick,
make a lot of
you're
sense
literally
to us.
interrupting him to acknowledge what he
No, I
said.
was giving him my response.
Have some
Don't be not the
self-discipline.
policeman here, Gregory. You should be, of all people, should be
Like,
quiet
you're
right now.
saying this to
Although I want to
acknowledge
hear
what
what
he
you got to
said,
say. I
and you're
just wish you'd wait
stifling
till
his
your time
reply
to
to
say
you,
it.
dude.
You
So
didn't hear what I said either, so I don't.
so just to be clear, it is equivalent. Exactly. Like there is 50% to 50%. There's not even a thousandth of a percent difference between one or the other. Equivalence. There's the exact equivalence, 100%, I should say. Equivalence between saying the Earth is at rest and the sun's orbiting the Earth versus the sun is at rest and the Earth's orbiting the sun. Both of those kinematically are perfectly equivalent. So to say we look in the sky and see things moving is not a proof of any model other than that there's relative motion between the two.
You're missing one point. Do you know what point that is? You're missing. We've already talked about it so far. You just kind of glazed over it.
What?
You may be right about, and Einstein himself said that too. We, detecting our motion in the universe or in our solar system is almost impossible. Basically, is what he said. Except for one problem. That's if we're not rotating. Once we're rotating, that's the problem. That
Okay,
blows up.
let me go there now.
And it is a problem for you. You
Okay,
cannot.
I got you.
Okay.
I got you.
All
So let's assume I've got my model right, where the Earth's just totally at rest, not rotating, not translating, not doing nothing, right? It's
Mhm.
just a stable rock, okay? But let's say that we were to take that system in which all of astronomy can agree with, either heliocentric or geocentric, both will work equivalently, okay? Let's say that we now take that system and we make the Earth rotate, okay?
Mhm.
If we make the Earth rotate in this system, so that would mean that there's like a fixed absolute space grid, and the Earth is fixed on that grid. It's just simply in its fixed position, spinning like a top, right? If
Mhm.
someone was to do that, they could still make the whole thing equivalent. They would just have to adjust the relative rotation rates of everything with respect to the grid, because with respect to the Earth, they'd still see the same things. So they'd have to just adjust everything commensurately. It would still be perfectly possible.
Possible, not probable. And the other problem would be the
Probability is subjective here because it's not mutually exclusive to any model. You're like taking a preference. It's literally a matter of preference at this point. It's supposed to be scientific, okay, not aesthetic.
You're trying to harp on probability or improbability, and it has no bearing.
No, it's
His point
possible,
is
not
it's
probable.
possible.
Probable meaning that. I'm sorry, Gregory, I interrupted you.
I mean, you're harping on probability. It has no bearing on the issue. The issue that he's discussing is possibility.
Yeah, and with possibility becomes it implies probability, right? So
Well,
it
the
could be
plausible.
possible. Yes, anything is possible. Probable. That's based on the information that we do have to our disposal, and these measurements we've made would make okay. So envision the Earth rotating, and then the sun making its motion, its path in the sky. over the sea.
Wait, Zanick,
And,
hold
hold on,
on.
I really can't even finish a sentence.
I was there before you like did that. Like before you run off,
No,
I
it's
just
to
want to make
Gregory.
sure it sticks to the. I know, but like I was making a point, and then you tried to make a little comment on his comment, which was a comment on mine, and then you're like, "Go ahead," and he finished his little comment on mine, and then you jumped in to do the big long thing. I'm just
No,
saying,
he was
I'm
actually
trying to.
criticizing my claim of possibility or probability statistics, which is actually a very fundamental part of science. Where
I know, but that's what I'm
evidence
trying to
and
address. Like you
probability.
don't know
Okay.
that that's what I'm addressing because I didn't get to finish the thing. So
Well,
plausibility or probability, right? This probability, right, that you're invoking here, it's not a quantitative measurement because as I already established, quantitatively, both models, or in this case, all three models, if you wanted to add a rotational but fixed Earth model, all three models quantitatively are equivalent. So the only difference you could make between them would be a qualitative difference, which is not probabilistic, it is aesthetic, it's preferential,
Right.
which does not do anything for anyone in a scientific sense when they're trying to establish within the scientific domain a truth claim. This is the same thing that happened in the 1500s with the whole Galileo, Tycho Brahe, Copernicus ordeal, is because they realized quantitatively everything was equivalent. But behind the scenes, they were arguing on which one to adopt, and who knows what the actual reasons came to be at the end of the day. We weren't there; we don't know, behind the curtain what went on. But what we're told, what we can ascertain from books, is that it came down to a matter of aesthetic preference because they had a Copernican model where these planets and everything were doing a bunch of elliptical orbits, and we had the Ptolemaic model where it was the flower of life spirograph pattern. And they settled upon, we think that, circles and spheres are the perfect shape and an ellipse is pretty close to a circle, and therefore it's pretty close to the perfect shape, which we like. They adopted a Greek philosophy, and literally that aesthetic preference determined the model that they chose, of which the multiple choices that they had were all quantitatively equivalent. So they made a qualitative choice based on the aesthetic top-down view of the solar system with respect to the origin, the pivot point, and they said, okay, if we put the Earth here, we got spirographs. If we put the sun here, we've got ellipses. We like ellipses better. That's what it came down to, bro. That's not scientific. I don't care what anybody says. You, as an honest man, know that that's not scientific. Even if you want to believe in it, and even if you feel justified in believing it, at the end of the day, like, you can still come away choosing to believe in it, but you're not going to say that it is scientific or more probabilistic. It's preferential.
Well, they have. We can actually pull out telescopes and look at sunspots on the sun itself and see its rotation, its cycles. I mean, there's so
Correct.
much data that. What was that?
So the sun moves, therefore the Earth moves. Like that. Once again, that's not an argument. We're going
Well,
in
the Earth
circles.
the Earth would be non-rotating, but all the other planets are rotating. So what's the explanation for those rotating?
So in other
Well,
words, just to clarify Paisl's point, right? It
All
isn't
the
as
all the
though
all the planets are
anyone.
rotating.
It isn't as though
Even the
anyone.
moon is rotating. Everything's
Damn, like
rotating.
I'm damn
Except
near
the Earth.
certain you heard me speaking before you began speaking. I'm damn near certain.
You shouldn't be that certain because I didn't hear you at all.
Okay. So Paisl's point, in other words, it isn't as though anyone did some like strong induction that drove them and motivated them to this conclusion that the Earth is doing all this motion and the other celestial bodies is doing all this other motion around the sun. That's not what produced and motivated the conclusion. Right? It isn't as though anyone observed a number of particular instances, right, anywhere analogous to observing like many instances of this particular temperature causing water to boil or to freeze. No one did anything like that to drive them to the conclusion that the Earth and other celestial bodies are orbiting around the sun. That's not what motivated that doctrine to be promulgated.
Well, if the Earth is stationary or whatever, if the Earth's not rotating, the other planets are rotating. So you have there's two things going on.
So if the Earth's not rotating, the other planets are rotating. Okay, cool. How does the other planets rotating have anything to do with the Earth? Why would that matter? Why would you assume because planets rotate, Earth has to? Those two things are not connected.
Well, the reason why so why are those planets rotating?
That's a different issue. That's a category.
Who knows? Yeah, it's literally, it doesn't follow the question of is Earth moving?
Well, so if the other planets are rotating, then that means a rotating planet is possible.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that Earth is moving.
I'm not saying that doesn't mean Earth's moving. It just says it's usually you're still going to have a rotating planet. The physics behind it, you're going to have rotating planets.
That's fine, bro. There's stuff up in the sky that rotates. Who cares about that? Doesn't change anything about the ground we stand on.
Okay.
So what would be the physical physics law or rules or whatever for why Earth wouldn't be rotating, but the other planets are rotating?
Hang on. Physical laws don't answer wouldn't or would.
I don't care. Can I join the discussion? Like, can we just do science instead of philosophy?
No, these guys want to talk about this. Look, I left concave Earth specifically because of the planets. You have to think this through. Okay, so you got a geocentric Earth. The Earth's not rotating, but you've got other planets up in the sky. First of all, are these planets large? Are they actual planets, or are they like unknown lights in the sky?
Yeah, they're not rocks, but even if they were rocks, once again, it wouldn't change the fact that they can do whatever they're doing with no bearing upon the Earth.
Well, they could be doing it, but there's physics behind it. What physics do they have that makes those planets rotate, but Earth couldn't rotate here because of what people thought?
You may want to talk about that, but we're not talking about the planet.
You're not following the conversation, bro.
Right.
Let these guys talk, please, bro.
I don't. Well, no, it's just his point. Even if he was to interject that and shift the topic slightly to include that, it still is not. It's still not logically following from like as a conclusion. Like, okay. Let me just try to reframe my explanation to you, K-Breaker. There's a universe. We just live in it. We didn't build it. We're just measuring it. There's an Earth. We live on it. Earth is fixed in place. The creator that made everything anchored the Earth to this center point in the universe, and everything moves around it. Earth's unmovable. Okay? Why? I don't know. Why did he decide to do that? I don't know. When did he decide to do that? Who knows? None of these things matter, right? All we know is that's the situation. Now we look in the sky. Oh, there's stuff in the sky. Yep, it's moving. Yep, why is it moving? I don't know. Well, how does it move? Well, there's these laws. There's Kepler's laws, and there's all these other mathematical relationships that describe its motion. Okay, those describe it pretty good. Yep, okay, cool. So why are they moving? Well, because he set everything into motion. Okay, and then it follows these laws. Okay. Well, they're rotating. Yep, they're rotating. Okay. Well, if they're rotating, why aren't we? I don't know. It doesn't mean that we should be. Like, do you see how that doesn't follow?
I understand that, but these scientists, they know. And they've created a science where everything links to each other.
What do you mean they know?
They know. Not only do they know, they're going to them. They've gone past them. They've got close to them.
What?
Back up. How do they know?
Gatebreaker, it's a non sequitur, bro. You're disrupting the convo again, bro. Please.
If you think I'm disrupting the convo, I'll go on mute. But the final conclusion, final conclusion for it to be sound, all these various elements need to be taken into consideration as well.
Okay, listen. I'm asking you. You just said they know. What do they know? The Earth is doing locomotion.
So in this hypothetical geocentric Earth setup, does that include hand in hand that NASA's lying? Does that include NASA's lying and that all the spaceships and stuff and all the planetary footage and getting close to them? Those are all
ignoring my voice. I asked you a question.
That'll make sense. Okay, so if they faked all of that. They didn't
Can
get
people not
close,
hear me, or is he just ignoring
they
my
didn't
voice?
get close to it.
He's just ignoring it, man. Gatebreaker, bro, either
What's he
stay on
doing?
track with the conversation or like you're just running off with the talking stick, man.
No, I'm not required to stop and shift to Gregory's point of trying to shut me up.
Well, he asked you a question and then
Shut you
you
up. I asked
jumped
you a
in
question. That's the prompt
proposing
you to
that you were
speak.
going to answer it and then you moved off to something else.
What the hell is he doing?
I don't know. It's wild.
How's asking you a question to prompt you to speak shutting you up? It's retarded.
Well, I think that's enough for me for one night. But I think I laid it out pretty well enough to show you that this stuff was a matter of preference. And when I was talking about behind the curtain with Copernicus, we couldn't see behind the curtain. We weren't alive. We could just read books. The point is, we know that Copernicus came up with the Copernican principle, which became, from that generation onward, the backbone of every astronomical interpretation for every measurement that's ever been taken since then. They say, which in the Copernican principle says, the Earth does not occupy a special or unique place in the universe. It's inherently not scientific. It's purely philosophical. It is a philosophical paradigm at its very core, through and through. And then they impose that paradigm onto their science so that when they interpret measurements, they say, okay, we have a couple of different options on how these measurements could be compatible with reality, but we're only going to allow them to fit under a Copernican principle framework. And so when you have equivalent models like a geocentric framework, which also accurately predict all the same measurements, it's all just a matter of coordinate system, then they wouldn't accept that because it contradicts their philosophical point of view. And then when you take physical measurements from a dynamic standpoint to try to actually measure the truth, quote unquote, of the situation, geocentrism predicts, hey, we're not going to measure motion. We don't measure motion. Geocentrism says, hey, that's a proof of our paradigm. Heliocentrism and Einstein says, no, it's a proof that all motion's relative. And then we go around in the big circle again, when people come away thinking that they have a scientific point of view when it's really a preferential philosophical one. That was my whole point.
Please, can I now say something?
What's up?
I have to whine about it.
Okay. So this was very, very, very long conversation. Do you think I should give my opinion about this from the beginning, like first about the motion of the Earth around the Sun and then rotation, or should we just focus on the rotation?
You decide.
Which was the latest topic.
Well, if you're asking me from what I think would be more efficient, I didn't deal with the rotation specifically yet because I was just granting that even in a world where rotation existed, it still wouldn't prove anything about like Copernicus. So to address the rotation now, I'll just throw this out there to add on to the end since I did forget. Thanks for reminding me. That rotation that's being measured with interferometry, with Michelson-Gale-Pearson, for example, that's not mutually exclusive to the Earth rotating either. It's also possible, entirely equivalent, that rotation that they're measuring would be the rotation of either the sky or the substance carrying light, or there's a rotating ether field and they're measuring it dragging at 15 degrees per hour, which is actually our position.
Is there any derivation of this which proves it would be equivalent?
It's because we have the same.
I mean, just stating the same isn't proving that it would be the same. It's just making a claim. Then you
the 15 degrees per hour is relative motion. It literally, it's the same derivation. It wouldn't be a different derivation. Like, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
just like the Zanick effect. Just like the Zanick effect. Yeah, just like the Zanick effect is C plus or minus V. Zanick derived the Zanick effect using classical math in an ether vortex. Relativity came along and tried to say, oh, we can't apply special relativity to your table because as soon as your table rotates, now it's rotation. Rotation is absolute, as if there's some fundamental difference between the light moving out, between the table moving out from under the light in a curved path or moving out from under the light in a straight path while the light's on its way to the mirror. As if those are fundamentally different somehow. They're not. If the light's on its way to the mirror, it doesn't matter if the mirror moves in an arc or moves in a straight line. The mirror's moving away from the light and is going to create a time delay. So to invoke like a curved motion versus a straight line motion, pretend that the two are separate categories and they're completely different from one another, and you can use one but not the other, is literally special pleading. It's special pleading in order to try to maintain an Einsteinian worldview when it was already disproven 100 years ago. So like that's our position.
So first you shift in the burden of proof. You don't have any derivation proving that it would be equivalent under your ether model.
Yes.
You're just saying that it would be?
Yes, sky rotates at dude, any derivation that you can show me for this is how fast the Earth is rotating is just going to simply be the Michelson-Gale-Pearson experiment converting a phase shift to a velocity. It's the Zanick effect. That's the Zanick effect. And I explained to you just now the derivation for the Zanick effect originally came from classical mechanics. If you look up George S. Zanick's original work, 1912 through 1914, it's with C plus or minus V, where V is relative to the Earth frame. So when you change it into the rotational, you get omega instead of a V. You just convert the linear motion to a rotational motion. You get 15 degrees per hour in Michelson-Gale-Pearson. That 15 degrees per hour, you make that relative to Earth. It's the sky rotating. Or the ether field in this case.
I'm not really sure about this, to be fair. You're just saying this, but I guess I would need a derivation to be sure that it is indeed equivalent. Because what you're doing now... I mean, yeah, and Zanick effect is pretty well described in relativity. So we have thousands, probably thousands, maybe not thousands, but at least hundreds of those derivations showing how it would look in relativity and that it would match, and all of them are peer-reviewed. But you have no derivation for the fact that it would be equivalent under your ether model, and you're just saying that it would be, which is the claim, as if the stating the claim was supposed to be the evidence for the claim.
Okay, if motion is relative, motion from A to B is equivalent for motion from B to A. So for you to say that it wouldn't be equivalent just doesn't even make sense to me. Like, you think it would somehow be a different number?
The problem here, I know what's the issue now.
That's the acceleration you're missing acceleration.
Yeah, the issue is the conflation of the word motion, which is loaded because it involves both velocity or acceleration, depending on the context of the discussion. And velocity is relative, but acceleration is absolute. And in the case of Michelson-Gale-Pearson, you have a rotation, and rotation is a form of acceleration. So that actually wouldn't be relative because the speed of light wouldn't be constant in a non-inertial frame.
I know. Okay, check this out. You're saying that the ground is rotating at 15 degrees per hour. I'm saying that the ether field is rotating 15 degrees per hour with respect to the ground. Do you understand how those are mathematically the same?
Yeah, but it can't change angles like the as you.
What do you mean it can't change angles? It just rotates.
I don't.
Is it going east to west always?
Impossible. The ether can't.
Always going east to west.
Change directions.
North to south.
Obviously.
Yeah,
we can get if it is rotating, we can go the opposite direction and get the exact same measurement. You can't if your ether is actually rotating. So it knows you have your own personal view of the ether. Everyone has their own personal ether field. That might work, but otherwise, your objection and your declaration that the ether can go rotate with the Earth does not give it the same characteristics for the Zanick effect as.
You think that the Earth's rotating
west to
east,
snobbishly laughing like he has the subject on lock?
I think the Earth's rotating west to east, right? So if the Earth's rotating west to east or the ether's rotating east to west, those are equivalent.
No, that's not how. See, we can measure this Zanick effect whether the Earth is rotating or not. Hold on. We can measure this rotation. I can actually put an airplane in an inertial state where it is still seeing. We'll still see a rotation, even though it's not.
I'm not going around the relative motion wheel with you again, Zanick. Like, we make progress, and then there's like this button in the base of your neck, and after the conversation's over, you go quiet for a few minutes, and then you hit the button in the base of your neck, and you reset like the Men in Black flashed your eyes.
We can get the exact same Zanick effect by going north to south, which is against this rotation, which you said is east to west. Going north to south, we can still get the same exact
There is no preferred direction of light, north to south. Actually, there's specifically a bunch of experiments done that show that
I have not said anything for a while.
You're
talking all over me, and I have not said anything for a while.
Yeah, north to south doesn't happen.
Who's got the hot miking? Is that Gregory? Who's that?
I don't know.
Got a hot mic.
But you pay attention to your screen and stop turning people's volume down.
No, I don't. I'm not looking at a screen right now.
All right, I gotta go.
Who is that? Right. I'll just talk over them. So if you go north to south, you get the exact same Zanick effect as you do from going east to west, plus the east to west velocity of the angular velocity of the Earth. So and I can go in different angles too. Plus, we got the Foucault pendulum. How does the Foucault pendulum work with ether? That's not an ether related type of apparatus that for causation. So that whole thing, ether, and it's rotating around the Earth. That's the answer. That's not the answer, though. It doesn't work in any way, shape, or form.
It's happening in the
pendulum
ether.
appeal is nothing more than weak induction again.
But the pendulum is in the ether, so of course it fits.
But the ether isn't why the ether can't be a causation for element.
Nihilism.
No, there's no. Explain to me the mechanics. Go ahead, Gregory. You seem to be a smart guy here. How would ether is rotating? How would if the ether is rotating? How would it make
plenty of things you can't explain the mechanics of?
Unbelievable! I mean, everyone hears you.
Double standards of rules. Double standards of rules.
No, it's not double standards of rules. It's actually understanding how they're. Remember when Whitsitt first got on here and we started talking about the Foucault pendulum? He thought the Earth was rotating under something. He had a completely clouded view of what actually was happening with this thing swinging in a fixed plane. The precession we actually observe, it's a perceived precession.
The precession is caused by what?
Caused by the rotation of the Earth and the position of it latitudinally on the surface of the Earth. That's what it's caused by.
Exactly. Foucault pendulum doing precession the way it does, it's not exclusively indicative of the Earth moving.
It is rotating.
It isn't. You can't explain.
How do you have this precession?
You can't prove. I'm going to keep repeating myself till you stop talking to me. You can't prove with any deductive syllogism that it's impossible for the precession of the pendulum to do what it does on a horizontal stationary plane.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so say the syllogism that proves that it's impossible and specify in what mode of impossibility.
Well, if you have a plane and you have a Foucault pendulum and you rotate that plane, because you have to have rotation for this to have the precession, because it's perceived precession. Things that are swinging in a fixed plane stay in that fixed plane, relatively so, without getting into the details of how that works. But if you have, then you move this Foucault pendulum to different latitudes, and then the precession is not equal to the rotation of this plane, then you have a serious problem there. And that's exactly what we see. We see a 33-hour rotation rate at latitudes around 40 degrees north. We have a one-to-one relationship at the hold on. We have a one-to-one relationship at the North Pole. And we have an absolutely zero rotation rate at the equator. So that is a problem for your idea that this is
have some mental discipline.
Okay.
Have some self-discipline.
Gregory, you're
say
very rude.
A syllogism.
I'm going to kind of not talk to you right now because you really kind of upset me.
Because you always do this every time you reply. Yeah. You don't have any self-discipline.
I have a question for Zanick. I have a question for Zanick.
Hang on. I'm going to give him one more chance. Say a succinct reply. Say the syllogism. That's what you need. Syllogisms are very useful. This is why logicians talk about them, because they make the argument entirely clear. It makes the argument entirely conspicuous, so there's no obscurity, no lack of clarity at all. It makes them entirely clear. That's the point. So say a syllogism, which is an entirely clear argument that clearly spells out the logical, valid form of the argument. Say a syllogism and then specify in what mode of impossibility.
I think Zanick's getting old. I think he's out of syllogism.
See, I'm not out of syllogism. So I told you already the simple syllogism for this, as you requested, Gregory.
What's the rule of inference?
The pendulum moves freely, and it maintains its plane.
Not a goddamn rule of inference, dude.
Yes, you want a syllogism. This is a syllogism. Pay attention, and you might get.
You didn't tell me the rule of inference.
The major premise
are formed and identified by rules of inference.
It's made up. Syllogisms have major premises and minor premises. Do you not agree? And conclusions.
You didn't say
the major premises. I heard you speak. I'm answering. If you don't like the answer, that's fine. But let me answer and stop talking over me. It's rude and obnoxious.
By name.
You're being obnoxious. Let me answer.
Hold on, guys. Let me get in here, Zanick. Gregory, we got to let Zanick respond.
regardless of if whether or not he's answering the question how you specified or not. We just got to allow him to just finish his point, and then you can address it.
We always have to
Zanick,
be
can you
waterboarded
please?
by his lectures and his verbose
See,
Oh, I
apology.
get it.
He asked me the
That's
question. He
his
wants a
choice to engage.
syllogism, and I'm going to give it to him.
Why don't we just try this? Either Zanick give a syllogism since he asked that to go with what Gregory. Hold on for a second, dude. Why don't we? I'm just trying to slow it down for a second. Where it's at right now, Gregory did ask for that. If we're going to kind of hold it to that, you want to either give a syllogism and not a bunch of side stuff. If you can't do it, he could maybe give an example of one, like a hypothetical for you.
I know what it is. I know what he wants. I'm giving it to him. He's not letting me finish.
All right, then
He
just go.
didn't. I asked him, "What is a rule? What's the rule of inference?"
Don't get any more words. He wanted a syllogism. I'm going to give him a syllogism.
Okay, so I'm going to say it again. I'm going to say what I said to Gio.
So
again,
let me
without him
answer
talking
him.
to me.
Would you please
I'm
mute
going
him
to say
as
what I
you
said
would me
again
if
to
I was
Gio without him
talking over
talking
me?
to me again. I'm going to try again.
No,
So I asked
you asked
him-
for a syllogism. I'm
Stop.
stopping there.
I'm talking to Gio for a moment. Stop.
I'm going to give you the syllogism.
Stop.
Gio requested it. I'm giving it to you. You be quiet. You stop.
Stop.
Why do you
I'm
have
talking
preference?
to Gio.
You asked me a question. It's my turn now.
Stop.
Did no one tell you manners?
I'm talking
Did your
Gio.
parents not tell you how to share when you were younger?
Someone stop him. I can say something to Gio. I don't have to just arrest myself.
No,
to
it's
him.
my turn to talk. You can do that after I'm
No,
done.
be quiet. I'm saying
It
something
was
to Gio.
my turn.
To clarify what's happening.
Guys, we got to
You asked for a syllogism.
sort of.
I'm trying to give him.
Somebody's got to yield here, or we're just never going to move on.
Not going to be
It's his
Gregory.
turn. I yield
So
all the time. I'm not yielding.
I can
this time.
say something to Gio. I don't have to just arrest
you're
myself
done.
to
You
him
already
and his
asked me a
demands.
question. I'm answering
we're not
it.
going to
Then
do
you can
any. We're
decide
not going to
what you
go
wanna do.
anywhere. We might as well all just have a moment of silence if we're just
to
at
be
a
fair,
standstill here.
Zanick was asked to give a syllogism. It seemed like he kind of fumbled the ball a bit. We got him back on track. Gregory, if you please would allow him to finish his statement, and then you can detract from that and go to Gio if you'd like. But
Just let me say
we
this
got
for
to give him
10
the
seconds to
benefit.
Gio.
Thank you.
And then
Thank
let
you
him
very much.
answer. It doesn't take that
I
long.
was giving it to you. You
It doesn't
interrupted
take
me. You
a
said you
thousand
didn't like
hours
the
for me
way
to
I
say
was
what I'm saying to
praising
Gio.
the syllogism. It's not my problem. If you don't like it, you can tell
He
me
just
afterward.
wants to
but I'm gonna
prevent
give
me
it
from
to you.
saying any reply.
Because that's what you asked for.
It's
I'm going to
vindictive.
give you a valid syllogism, and you're going to listen to it.
Dude, why do both of you guys you can't yield for 15 seconds?
I'm literally trying to not. I'm not even talking to him. I'm talking to you. He just won't let me talk
he
to
won't
you.
yield, Gio.
No, but
I
neither
yield
of you
every
can
time.
yield. Neither of you can yield to do something.
It's not true, Gio. I yield them all the time.
And to be fair, Gregory,
why can't he yield to me clarifying for 15
Still talking.
seconds?
Listen to
I'm
him.
answering
He's proving
why.
himself.
I'm answering why, Gregory, because you asked Zanick for a question before Zanick could answer, right? You kind of got sick of his answer and you wanted to just jump to Gio, but we do have to give Zanick the benefit to answer. So please, Gregory, just allow Zanick to wrap it up very shortly and concisely, and then you can have the floor. Zanick, please be quick. Go ahead.
Oh, it's got to be quick. The simple syllogism for this. And the major premise is this pendulum is swinging freely. It maintains its plane of oscillation in a inertial, non-rotating frame. So the minor premise would be the Foucault pendulum's plane of oscillation appears to rotate with the Earth. Conclusion, the Earth must be rotating beneath the pendulum. Simple.
Rule of inference specified by name now.
I just gave you a good syllogism. You don't like it? Too bad. That's the
Rule of
answer.
inference specified by name now, meaning gracious given to you other opportunity. Do it.
What do you say? What do you want me? What do you want? More than I give you
Rule of
already?
inference
You don't like
specify it by name now.
By your name now? What? What are you asking?
Entirely stupid.
Ranting.
Specify the rule of inference by name
Yeah, modus
now.
ponens? Yeah, modus ponens. Is that what you want?
Yeah, that's what do you mean?
You
Is that
your
what I
modus
want?
ponens.
Do
Why
you,
don't you
do
just
you
ask for
know?
that?
Do you know what rule of inference you're trying to use? You're just throwing out a name of a rule of inference. You probably don't even know
That's what
that
it
it
is.
is a rule of inference or not.
That's what it is.
Oh, so you think it's the modus ponens? It's not a modus ponens.
It's not. Oh, rule of inference is not modus ponens.
No, your argument,
I
your
thought-
syllogism is not a modus ponens. It's not the form
My
of your
syllogism
argument.
is correct. I laid it out for you very
No, it
accurately.
isn't. You said it's
and you don't
modus
like
ponens. It
So
isn't modus
why don't
ponens.
you give me an example? Why don't you steel man my position so we all can stop arguing and listen to your mouth, and we can just go move forward. It's just like this is rude.
Now I'm
You're
tolerating
being
him
rude. I'm
talking
just
to
trying
me,
to be.
right?
I'm just trying to give you an answer you wanted, and you're just being
I'm
an
tolerating him
asshole.
talking to me right now for the past
Dude,
5
what
minutes.
he's saying, I think what he's saying is that modus ponens is a rule of inference, but you didn't say your argument in a modus ponens fashion. Zanick, that's what he's saying. You didn't
No, I
give
didn't.
your argument.
Now-
you didn't
now-
give
now-
an
now I'm
if
coming
you
from
didn't give a
Morgan.
modus ponens. Word it in a modus ponens is what he's asking. yes, modus ponens is a rule of inference if that's what you're going to go with. But if you're going to do that, then you have to use modus
fine.
ponens.
I can do that. Okay, so basically, if the Earth is rotating, then that plane of oscillation of the focal pendulum will appear to precess relative to latitudinal positions across the Earth. And now the observation is, well, the plane of oscillation of the focal pendulum is observed to precess with the Earth's surface or the latitudinal position. So therefore, the Earth is rotating. How about that? There's your modus ponens. Done. Thank you. That's why I don't do more than 2 shows a day.
Your move, Greg.
Can't handle it. He's got egg in his face now.
Well, you just gave it affirming the consequent logical fallacy. So
yeah, I was just about to say that he just affirmed the consequent. It's not modus ponens.
Really?
Yes, really. You said
No,
if A
not
then
really.
B, if B therefore A. That's what you said.
Yeah, think about that for a while, didn't you? No, that's not what I did actually.
You did. You said if this, then that. Then you affirmed
If
that,
P,
and then
then
affirmed
Q.
the antecedent in the conclusion.
If
That's what you
P,
did.
then Q. If P, then Q, then the premise P is also accepted, and the conclusion Q must necessarily follow. Where's the problem?
That's affirming the consequent. If A, then B.
That's modus
then you
ponens, a
affirm.
basic rule.
Be quiet. You affirmed
be
the
quiet.
consequent
I'm
in
not
your
your
second
child.
premise. That's what you did. You affirmed the
Premise.
consequent in your second premise. That's affirming the
If
consequent
the
fallacy.
Earth is rotating, then this plane of oscillation will be conditionally dependent upon latitude. And the premise 2 would be, what do we see as observations? Well, this plane of oscillation is observed to precess
Affirming the
relative to
consequent.
latitudes. What?
You just affirmed the consequent in your conditional premise.
We'll call it pendulum as textbook affirming. If you try to say Earth spinning,
Yeah, wow.
it's
Zanick,
textbook
so good.
affirming the consequent from a full call pendulum.
If the Earth
It's a
is
formal
rotating,
fallacy. It's not even an informal fallacy. It's a formal fallacy.
If the sphere is rotating, a pendulum on the Earth, not just a sphere, it's got to be an Earth because it's got to have gravity. The Earth is rotating, then the pendulum will precess, and the precession will be exactly dependent upon latitude of that that rotational sphere of the Earth.
Do you know why this is affirming the consequent? Let's start there. Maybe that might solve everything. Do you know why this is affirming the consequent?
Hilarious, because I already taught him modus ponens like several weeks ago.
I gave
And
you modus
affirmed the
ponens in my. I put it in your form that you wanted, that you taught me. There you go.
You didn't.
No,
You affirmed the consequent.
If you're
It's
doing
not.
modus ponens, if you're doing modus ponens, which is the one you said, P implies Q. P is true, therefore Q must also be true. So in your
Right.
thing, Earth rotating, Earth is rotating ball, P, implies that the pendulum will precess. Okay, Q.
Right.
But the next one is P is true. So the Earth rotating is true. Therefore, Q. But you haven't proven the Earth is rotating, so you haven't mixed up. You haven't proven the Earth rotation.
Oh, that fucking thing, whatever that is, doesn't do anything.
That was better.
You're just saying Earth's rotating. That's it.
Right. That was
That's just you
actually
saying
modus
Earth's
ponens, and
rotating.
you're just begging the question the entire time.
Well, he formed the modus ponens. It's if the Earth is rotating. It's not Earth is rotating, therefore.
Correct. That's a good point.
Yeah, we know what a conditional premise is.
Well, that's
You
how
said the
you do modus
conditional
ponens.
premise and then affirm the antecedent, then affirm the consequent in the successive premise after the initial conditional premise. That's affirming the consequent.
Right, because the problem with it is that there could be another reason the pendulum is precessing, so it could lead you to the wrong conclusion that it's Earth rotation. That's the problem. And you're just left with the wrong answer, which is not what good logic is meant to do. If it leaves you with a problem, like it's something that's not the right answer. That's why it's a fallacy.
So we can then,
So we taught you modus ponens again.
Then we can rephrase it.
And
Hold on.
taught you affirming the consequent fallacy again.
Then we can rephrase
You
it.
just
Then I'll
keep getting
rephrase
it wrong.
Then I
You
can
just prove
rephrase
that
it.
you don't know how to think soundly
get
about
it.
the issues.
No, I get it.
But
You
then
have
you just
a valid
insist on
objection.
lecturing everyone about the issues.
You have a objection. I valid. I get it. I like the way Geo phrased it. Let me respond with a different one. So can we all agree that a freely swinging pendulum will maintain that plane of oscillation unless acted upon by an external force? Would you accept that?
Why are you asking
Okay, if
questions?
so-
Say your syllogism. You failed the first time.
No. This is the major premise. And the
Your
minor
argument
premise
doesn't
would be
need
the
our
pendulum's
concession.
plane appears to rotate over the floor over time. That's what we do see. We all agree that, I think.
Your argument
So
doesn't
therefore,
need
the
an
Earth's
interview
floor,
to us, dude.
or reference frame must be rotating beneath. Okay, I can't do this anymore. You're trying to nail me to the wall, and I'm obviously moving around too fast or something. Give me too many gladiator moves. I don't know what the deal is. It's not working. So I've
You're bad
given
at
you what
debate.
you
That's
wanted.
it.
You don't like it. You say it's affirmative consequent. Fine. You win. I lose. Okay, great.
I just learn
Can
how to
I
argue
say
things
something
soundly
for
about
clarity?
issues.
I mean, Gregor, you did just interrupt him there. You could have given him 20 seconds, but I mean, because he was trying to say something.
Because we don't need to be waterboarded with his interview. He needs to be saying an argument.
Oh my God! Really?
It is a bit of waterboarding talking to Zanick.
He's
The words
waterboarding
just
me.
come in and he doesn't stop, and you just.
I'm the
So-
persecuted. What are you talking about? I'm the little guy here.
You did get interrupted. Did you want to say your point, or should we let SE get?
I get where he's coming from, and there is a little bit about this that, and I've always agreed with Gio and everybody else that a lot of this is affirmative consequent. A lot of the things we actually use as evidence has a level and a degree of affirmative consequence in the
Fallacy.
logic.
You just admitted you're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
No.
If
you
I gave you
acknowledge that they're
I
affirmative
put it a different
consequent,
way.
you
I
admitted
said,
you don't know.
if the objects stay in motion in a straight line until acted upon by their force, in other words, the focal pendulum is set up and it's freely swinging back and forth in a single plane, in order for it to precess, there has to be some forces acting on it, some pseudo forces specifically acting on it. Would you not agree?
Dude, if you admit that a lot of your appeals are affirmative consequent, you're admitting that you're appealing to fallacies, fallacious argumentation, which proves you don't know your beliefs.
Well,
simple as that.
I do know that they're not beliefs. These are laws of nature.
You believe the proposition.
These are laws of nature that there are no exceptions to. For example,
hang on, Zanick. You said earlier yourself that pseudo forces are illogical, and now you're trying to bring them in?
Right.
That's the problem. Right.
Before we get into that, let me say something real quick, guys. 10 seconds, right? Because there's a misconception that everybody says. I used to say it too. The pendulum does not precess. The pendulum moves back and forth, and the story goes that the earth moves underneath it, okay? The pendulum has to swing back and forth. The pendulum does not precess. For the sake of the audience.
That's
Thank
not
you.
true, actually.
No, it does, because it's still called precession, even if they think it's like if the Earth is stationary and then the pendulum's precessing, then it's the pendulum that's actually moving across the stationary Earth. If it's a globe or whatever and it's spinning, the globe is spinning under it. But I think SC, like the term, like saying the pendulum precesses, even in their globe thing, I still think that. I mean, doesn't that? I guess I don't know 100%, but doesn't that still work? Like, I was actually gonna because technically, wording wise, the pendulum is precessing, even if the cause is the Earth rotating. Like, I think you can still call that the pendulum is precessing.
Gio's right.
Hold on, Zanick, please. You've been talking for a while. Not technically, because according to the story of the pendulum, right, as pertained to the spinning Earth that it proves, the pendulum has to move back and forth in a straight line, right? And it's the Earth that moves underneath. You know when they show it in the museum and it knocks off those things? So it's incorrect to say that the pendulum precesses, but everybody says it that way.
It's really not the Earth moving underneath it either, because you could have it go not precess at all at the equator. So proving wrong that assumption. What they were trying to say, SE, is that the precession is this perceived. You can think of precession. I'm could have sworn I was in the middle of a sentence. Is that Gregory?
What you should really say is that the Earth is precessing, actually, because I just looked up the definition of the word. The definition of the word. Yeah, I know, but I think you could still word it that the pendulum. Well, okay, so here the definition of precession. A comparatively slow circling of the rotation axis of a spinning body about another line intersecting it. So the line would be like the pendulum going back and forth, and then the comparatively slow circling of the rotational axis of a spinning body, and this would be the globe. So wording wise, do you have to say the Earth is precessing with Foucault's pendulum, or do you have to say the pendulum is precessing, or do both work wording wise? That part I don't know.
Both don't work. Both don't work because according to Foucault, it's the rotating body underneath the pendulum that's rotating, and the pendulum has to be moving back and forth, or else there's no reference to it. So technically, you have to say that the Earth is moving, which I don't believe. I'm just saying, according to Foucault, the correct thing is the Earth is processing.
Okay, well, if that's the
not
case,
pendulum.
okay, if that's the
Heard and
case, then I should
understood.
be at the equator, and I can have the Earth rotate, and have no precession occur. So then rotation does not cause precession. So that whole claim is incorrect. There is a rotational component involved, but it is something that it is 100% at the North Pole, and you know that value goes way up as you go to southward to the equator or northward from
You're
the South
just
Pole.
wordsmithing it now, bro. You're
I'm
just
not wordsmithing it. If the Earth rotates, and at the equator it does not precess at all, so it can't be just due to rotation alone. It has to do with this rotation and the theta angle. It has to do with the angle as well.
You just simply don't understand it, bro.
Okay, but you included in that the rotation of the Earth in your own rhetoric.
I know you mean well.
We heard you. You just included the rotation of the Earth in that. That's what you're trying to prove.
Then put it in Moses Ptolemy's. Go ahead.
No, I'm not going to argue for you. What the fuck?
No, you can put that in mode. You can do your own version of that,
argue
because
for you.
if you're gonna determine its rotation, and I'm gonna give you a situation where it's not true. If it rotates, then precession, and I can give you a situation where it doesn't
your own
rotate.
doctrine.
So it's
Okay.
not. It has to be. You have to include latitudinal position with the rotation. Otherwise, your whole premise is shot.
Yeah, included. You're trying to prove the Earth is moving. That's included what you're doing.
Rotating.
Moving. It's a type of motion.
Not really.
What you mean? The fuck you mean not really?
Moving.
You
I
hear
can have
the
a
guy?
spinning ball sitting on a fixed thing. It's not moving. It's just rotating.
That's a type of motion. What is wrong with
not
him?
moving. Its center is not moved.
Like who
Its position is
who
not
here agrees
changed.
with that? That rotation is not a type of motion.
It's a type of motion of the sphere itself.
It's what I said.
Are you
Is
saying
correct.
there's no such thing as conservation of angular momentum, Zanick?
Of course there is. That's the rotation of the surface. You say the Earth
Okay.
itself rotating.
I don't know.
See,
SC,
what I
they
said is
definitely say
correct.
the pendulum. They do word it. The pendulum precesses, like in the wording of this. Like in
I
the
know
house.
they do, but it's incorrect. It's technically incorrect.
According to you.
No, according to law, bro, the whole thing. Why the proof that Foucault gave that the Earth is moving is because the pendulum is moving back and forth with relation to the Earth moving. This is not rocket science, bro. This is a kid's toy. You need the pendulum to be moving in a linear motion in order to say it's relative to the Earth spinning. Why is this difficult?
Because the word
everything we utter out of our
precession.
mouths because
I'll give you the answer. I'll give you the answer.
Resist and contradict.
I'll give you the answer. No, I'll give you the answer. Precession is a perceived motion. That's what precession means. It looks like the Foucault pendulum is rotating, but it really is the dial underneath it that's rotating. I agree with that.
That's what I just said.
I know you're not wrong, but you're getting a little pedantic in saying where you can't. And like I said,
The
Gio just
irony
found
of
out
calling
the definition.
pedantic.
As the Foucault pendulum is precessing. That's technically what's happening. It's a perceived motion. It's not a real motion of that plane. That plane's not moving.
You can't make any progress.
I don't think perceived.
I was waiting.
Go ahead. I don't think
I
perceived.
just want to say, I would like people to stop using this pedantic terms, because in these rooms when we're having these conversations, we have to be pedantic.
Yeah, to be precise. All right.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think the word perceived, Zanick, necessarily is connected to the word precession just because you perceive it. Because precession, I read it earlier, a comparatively slow gyration of the rotation axis of a spinning body, that would be the glob, about another line intersecting it so as to describe a cone. That's actually one of them. The other one is similar, except it doesn't say a cone. It's just an axis of a line. So yeah, I did bring it back up because SC brought it up, but I'm just saying, like, if you did have a big spinning thing underneath a pendulum and the pendulum was just swinging back and forth, there is precession occurring because you have a spinning thing and then the straight line axis of the actual other definition, the one I was a little bit better. Hold on. Right here, a comparatively slow circling of the rotational axis of a spinning body about another line intersecting it. So the line is the pendulum going back and forth, and then the Earth, in that theory of it, the Earth is rotating under. but what like is the wording that you have to say the globe or the spinning axis body is precessing, or is the pendulum precessing? Now, SE's trying to say because the pendulum's okay, but I'm not sure that's actually like in terms of the English language though. Like you might be able to say the pendulum is precessing because the pendulum is the straight line that's just going back and forth, the globe going under. That's all I'm saying. And it seems like in all of the literature, like they say, like right here, these calculations show that the pendulum's precession period varies with latitude. Like they call it the pendulum's precession period. So, anyways, I'm not trying to like.
That's what.
Yeah, I'm kind of. Yeah. Like I mean, what they claim is happening. I hear you, SE, on that. I just the wording, you know. Another time, if we don't want to harp on
SE's critique is that it's analytically wrong.
Yes, exactly. It's analytically wrong. It's a wrong statement.
Well, it
like
says
given
here,
the meaning of
it says
precession,
here,
what
yes,
they're calling
the
is
perceived,
precession is wrong.
It says here, yes, the precession of the focal pendulum, the slow rotation of the swing plane, is an apparent rotation from our Earth or perspective of Earth, demonstrated that the Earth itself is rotating beneath the pendulum, which tries to maintain its fixed swing plane in inertial space. So it's saying, yes, the precession of the focal pendulum is that apparent rotation, is the perceived rotation.
Yeah, like SE, let's say we were doing an experiment in a lab and we had a ball, a 5-foot radius ball, and we spin the ball, we put it on a little motor and the ball's spinning. Then we take a pendulum and we put it, of course it wouldn't really work on a ball because it would fall off the ball, whatever. But let's just say you hold the pendulum, you suspend it over the spinning ball, and then you swing the pendulum back and forth. In this case, the pendulum would not be, moving. Let's say you have a motor that just makes it go straight back and forth. And if we did that and we're going to write our paper now, what I'm saying is that in that paper, would it be technically valid to say this pendulum is precessing, even though we have a spinning ball underneath the pendulum that's swinging back and forth? That's the thing. Because, I mean, in the mainstream kind of world of it, I mean, they say it is the globe spinning underneath it, but they say the pendulum precesses. So I'm just saying, if we published a paper, would it be valid for us to say, hey, this pendulum was precessing in our little 5-foot ball experiment?
Not if it was moving back and forth. Let me explain this like as simply as possible, right? And you'll understand it this way. When they do this said experiment, right? Do they not tie it to a string and burn it? They do that, right?
Yes.
Now, the reason why they do that is they want to make sure that it falls in a straight line. That's the whole reason why they do that. So, I mean, it's just a technical statement, but the whole idea is that pendulum has to move back and forth in a straight line in order for the relative motion of the said Earth to be measured. Otherwise, if the pendulum is moving around, processing, and the Earth is spinning, then what do you have exactly? You have nothing. Does
That's what the stationary Earth description would be, is that the Earth is at rest and then the pendulum is precessing.
Yeah, that would be a different story. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just not to be overly pedantic, but I just think the wording, like saying the pendulum is precessing, might be valid if it's a ball spinning under a pendulum, or if the pendulum is actually moving around, like doing it on a stationary Earth. I'm just not 100% the wording, like the absolute, or if there is like a for sure technical of which one. It's kind of like the pejorative, or like which, or not pejorative, but the like the naming of which is the thing that's precessing. Like if I went and if I say, hey, you went and played baseball, and you're like, well, no, the baseball played you. You know what I mean? It's like which one is the correct like naming?
So bottom line,
it's a wording.
The appeal to Foucault's pendulum, as though it's exclusively indicative of the notion that the Earth is doing axial rotation. It doesn't. We all know it doesn't. And then tried to supplement that by acting as though the only other option is impossible. And I told him to specify the mode. He never specified the mode. He still doesn't understand that metaphysical concept. And then I told him to say the syllogism to make his argument entirely conspicuous, and he failed to do so. He contrived one argument, called it modus ponens, and didn't even say a conditional premise, let alone affirm the antecedent to then conclude with the consequent. He affirmed the consequent. Then we had to teach him the difference between modus ponens and affirming the consequent. So he miserably failed again.
ChatGPT saying using the Lorentz ether. So I'm not a witsit on any of this. Most of you guys probably know this more than me. ChatGPT saying using the Lorentz ether theory that it's literally 1-to-1 with relativity. It's saying everything could be explained. Everything. It's literally saying it cannot be disproven. The downside is a comms razor because it's not claiming something that you can't technically detect.
That's what Piezo was saying earlier. That's exactly what Piezo was saying earlier, is that they're equivalent. And they actually they made relativity from ether. That's the thing. They pulled it from that. They didn't just come up with it out of the blue. They altered it, modified it, and then relabeled what already was the case. In terms of components of ether, and they took it in and they rebranded it and changed a few things and put a false model in.
Which is obviously not parsimonious.
But
if anything is not parsimonious, it's doing all that rigmarole.
This is obviously with the consideration that Earth's a globe and it's rotating. It's saying that it can't be disproven with those considerations.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah. So yeah, that's everything with all that, like Gio just described, it's antithetical. That's very opposite of parsimonious. That is not the most simplest thing to retroactively re-engineer concepts so you can contrive some ontologically erroneous notion.
Because of a philosophical bias or preference, yeah.
Exactly. It is not an application of Occam's razor at all.
No, it's because the flat Earth doesn't have any explanation for why the pendulum would behave in the same exact way as it would on a rotating globe, and the globe has, because, well, that's...
Gatebreaker just said it does.
Yeah, he ignored that.
The Zanick effect. We just talked.
Wasn't the topic the Foucault pendulum?
Yeah, but that's connected to the Zanick effect and to this whole the component that is related to in terms of the
you obviously weren't listening.
So maybe if someone can get into a debate with the Glober using the Lorentz ether theory, but keep everything else the same, don't argue for non-rotation, don't argue for stationary, that argument may be, it might get somewhere.
Like they don't have anything going for them.
Aren't you a Glober now? What's wrong with you?
Because then there's three things being carried in that debate or whatever. It's ether, non-rotation, and stationary. But if it's just ether versus everything else the same, not ether, incorporating Ken's ideas, maybe that debate can go somewhere.
So Gatebreaker before.
Ken who?
Ken Wheeler.
Why is he related to any of this?
The things he brings up about the issues with bumping particles and stuff, and how the ether view can better explain things.
All right. I mean, no, I know he's a guy that talks about these things. I just don't see how he's like a standard for what it but I hear you. I mean, if he's like,
he provides insight at best. That's the point.
No, but you're saying how he refers to it and so on. Okay, yeah. I mean, I hear you. But he discusses this similar region of things or area.
So what was it? Gatebreaker, you mentioned before, I think it was going back about 15, 20 minutes or so, but you had an issue with the question of like, how are the bodies, the planets and the stars or whatever, how are they in motion? Is it something like that? You wanted that answered as far as ether physics is concerned?
I was just bringing up like, okay, assuming Earth's stationary and not rotating, but there's planets in the sky that are actually rotating. Not that means therefore Earth can't be rotating, but that both are happening. Both are happening at the same time, meaning that there's a physics up there in the sky for a planet to rotate. And then I got muted.
Hang on.
I got muted in the middle of trying to clarify, like, does this idea necessitate that planets are no longer, they're not as we know them to be? Like, does that have to be taken into consideration?
Is it
you
the
don't
fact that
know them to be?
What's up, Rob?
Well, no, Piezo like steelman your entire issue to the conclusion.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they only appear to be rotating. You can't actually know that they're rotating bodies up there. Gatebreaker.
I got you. Do you guys think in the conception of a geostationary globe, non-rotating Earth, that one that's being argued for, would that also include and necessitate that NASA's lying in terms of like planets, that they're that they're not going there, their crafts aren't the pictures and videos they've taken, that's not accurately.
Yeah, dude, it's all fake
You
as
think
fuck.
they have a helicopter on
Faking gay.
Mars?
Why are you asking that? You know the answer to that question.
No, I don't
Yeah,
have a
it's all-
problem. I'm just trying to accurately have the ideas in my mind of what all is going on.
I
Wait, is it-
already know
wait,
the answer to that question.
Jeez,
You already
guys.
know.
No, but his question I think was like, if it was a stationary globe with all of these balls out there, he's saying, could they still be balls out there? That NASA's not lying about the ball part, like they are going out there, but it's a stationary globe. Is that what you're asking?
Something like that. Yeah, I'm just trying to get all the elements in line of what's actually happening.
But that's not an interesting thing. Like it's just a metaphysical truism. Yeah, it's possible. That's a possible world.
Are you more concerned with the rotating of the bodies in the sky, or the fact that they're moving and orbiting around the said sun?
I'm not really concerned with anything. I just want to correctly get all my elements in line, because in order for it to like work the way I do it, I take multiple things into consideration at once. Okay, if this is this way, how is everything else doing? But what about this? But what about that type thing?
Okay, did we answer it? Because I think I just answered you. Like it's a possible world.
I'm not throwing this on anyone. I'm not forcing anyone to. This is just how I'm thinking. So that's all.
Okay.
All I got an issue with slightly then. What's up, Gregory?
I'm like he just keeps repeating himself. Like, is it not satisfied? He asked the
Well,
question. Someone answered it.
All right, let's
What
let
I'm
Rick
trying to
go.
get
He's been
to-
trying to get in.
What I'm trying to get to is you seem to be sort of astonished at the notion that something else could be causing the orbiting or rotating. That's why I was kind of interested, particularly in that observation that you're keen on. And the issue I've got slightly is the fact that, well, the proposition of the heliocentric model is that these things are orbiting, are rotating, are rocks, and they were set in motion, billions and billions of years ago. And if you ask us, okay, why are they rotating in the sky? We'll say something like an ether field and ether physics or whatever you want to say. And then it seems unreasonable to you to make that declaration. How would that field be rotating? That's ridiculous or something, right? But then when we go investigate in the heliocentric model, I mean, they just kick the can down the road and say that this all was set in motion billions of years ago, and it's just inertia that's playing out. And I just find that to be sort of, why is it so ridiculous if it's ether physics and a field rotating and moving these bodies in the sky, and you're just like basically declaring billions of years and massive rocks? Like,
Okay, so first of all, I was never astonished and I never claimed anything to be ridiculous. I just want to get my cards in line and figure out what's happening. If we're on a ball and it's stationary, what about the physics of this ball makes it stationary, but the physics of those balls up there makes it non-stationary?
How do we know it's not just a mirage that we're witnessing? How do we know? How do we stamp validity on the fact that those are planets?
Yeah, it could be, and it could be right. Also, maybe distances are off, and maybe those are just questions I had. I'm not operating in the way you guys think I'm operating.
All right, but isn't it just an assumption as above, so below? Like kind of principle going on here then? Like you just assume that when you look up at the sky, you see terrestrial terra firma up there, and you look down on the ground like it's terra firma, and so this ipso facto must be a ball in the sky. Like, is that what
it's uniformity of nature? It's literally how we go through life.
We're interpreting
with the assumption of uniformity of nature.
We're interpreting too much into his question. He simply asked, "Is this possible?" That's why I just said, "Yeah, it's a truism. It's a trifling question. It's a possible world. What else is there to say?"
Yeah, but Jake, I mean, that's not really valid because, like, for example, you could look at another human and be like, they're a woman, therefore I must be a woman, but that may be false. Just because you're in a room of 30 women doesn't mean you're a woman.
No, that's kind of a false equivocation there.
Nope, it's exactly the same.
It's not even equivocation.
No, that would be like
you're saying uniformity. If the moon looks like a little bit like rocks in the Arizona desert or the ground in Nevada, if you've ever, dude, in Nevada looks like the moon, dude. I've driven from like Northern California down through the Nevada way. It is like another world, dude. Literally like the idea of being on like the moon, like in like sci-fi. That's the most any place
Well,
I've been on
a
Earth.
lot of those movies,
Unbelievable
Gio,
how
they
much it
film
looks
out
like.
there.
Yeah.
A lot of those space type movies they film out there.
I
In the
bet, dude.
Mojave
Yeah,
Desert. There's specific places where they do a lot of filming, like Land of the Lost, Planet of the Apes, a lot of the Star Wars stuff.
Well, because you can.
Yeah.
What's wild? What's wild about it is there's these huge kind of like big like valleys or whatever that you can see, you know, for incredibly long, and there's just no one. There's like no life. You know, you're driving down the road, you might find a little town with like a few houses, but so it's just so barren for so long. It looks like almost like another worldly kind of thing, just because it's the way that it's like that. But my point bringing it up is that just because the moon surface looks a little bit like things in the desert does not mean that the moon is the same as the rocks in the desert. In the same way, it was not a false equivalent type of thing, because I was saying if you're in a room, if you're in a room of 30 women, it doesn't mean you're a woman. So if the moon looks like a rock, it doesn't mean it's a rock. It's the same thing.
I like the pool hall.
He didn't even say
analogy,
equivalency.
where all the balls on the pool table are round, therefore the pool table must be round as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said it's equivocation. It's categorically not equivocation. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, the pool table thing.
I mean, I was making an analogy. Ultimately, I wasn't trying to match it perfectly, obviously.
Yeah, it's obviously an analogy. It's obviously a true analogy.
Yeah, same thing. If the like balls up there, it doesn't mean we're on a ball. Go ahead, Egypt. Yeah, I think you were cutting out.
Yeah, I think I don't know who was talking about possible worlds, right?
Funny.
That's a whole different ballgame. Yeah, like the possibility of it existing, like axioms, things like mathematics, like 1 + 1, right? 1 + 1 = 2, regardless of anything. And in a possible world, it would still be 2. 1 + 1
There's no possible
must
worlds
equal
where
2.
it would equal non-2.
Exactly. Thank you. You get it.
Yeah.
So I think
They
that
don't understand
has.
these things. They just don't study philosophy.
Yeah,
They just ignore it while they get PhDs, which is the acronym for Doctorate of Philosophy.
Well,
It's just so
we're not
retarded.
talking to PhDs. We're talking to the general public, and I think the general public can grasp these ideas.
No,
Just
Gregory,
it's such a
it's because they
disservice to the
doctored.
public.
No, it's because they doctored philosophy. They're doctoring.
Yeah. like again, this is why like this is like one historical insight really is very interesting, right? For millennia, this area of knowledge was known as natural philosophy. It's categorically a philosophical issue. Then some anti-theist, antichrist, whatever, decided to relabel this category, just call it science. It's been called science only for the past 200 so odd years. But for millennia, it was known as natural philosophy. And it's obviously quintessential. It's trying to study the fundamental nature of the material things in particular and the regular function patterns that they operate by with all sorts of epistemic, particularly delineated epistemic standards and applications. It's quintessentially philosophical.
yeah,
They just don't understand this.
yeah. They actually not just not understand it. They understand it upside down. Like they think
Right.
of philosophy as being something that is of the mind and is therefore not physical. Therefore, because of this understanding of how science is the end all be all kind of thing. So philosophy is like this second state kind of thing where when it's actually the birthplace of science and whatnot.
Exactly.
Philosophy is the basis of everything that we can think of.
Exactly.
They think of it the other way around, like it
Yeah, they just have a
comes
caricature of philosophy.
after
They've obviously
science.
been traumatized, right? They've been traumatized by the
Yeah.
bad representation of philosophy by god awful philosophers with just yapping their conjecture, right? That's not philosophy. Philosophy
What
is
up,
the
Egypt?
disciplined attempt to study a worldview.
What up, Dice Low?
Worldview is the object that
Sorry, Greg.
philosophy is trying to study.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, 100%. I wish more people understood that, and that's why like I kind of brought this in and like listened to you as soon as I came into the room and heard that from you, like that's someone who gets it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, that's what's so wild to think that all of like the modern heliocentric model is actually philosophy. See, people think it's science
Exactly.
and they say it's
Mere
science.
conjecture, to be precise.
Yeah. Is it actually philosophy, meaning a different way to interpret, the phenomenon? And with a lot of these things that are equivalent, like in terms of ether and relativity, which are not the same, but I'm saying there's certain overlap because of what they had to take originally, all the math, everything, a lot of that. So yeah, and then just a lot of the other like kinematic and equivalences in terms of the etc. So it's just wild to think that to be on a stationary plane with whatever those objects are in the sky that you can't physically go to could just be the truth. And then the philosophers who wanted to push the heliocentric model came up with a whole bunch of philosophy and I mean I think some fake pictures and other fakery to then sell a philosophical bias or choice of a way of interpreting things and then sold it to the whole world as science.
Yep.
This is why I made this list, right? Because they're not going to do it for us. I've explained this before. They're not going to succinctly systematize their worldview. They're not competent for that, right? So, just as there's these other categories, there's Christianism, there's Islam, there's Judaism, there's Hinduism, there's Buddhism, da 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 da. They have their own little circle, right? Now we need to turn to succinctly and easily, conveniently refer to them. So scientism suffices because they always yap about scientism. That's the center of their discourse, which is the hallmark of a religion. It's the center of your discourse. So it's a very apropos term. So we can easily designate their worldview scientism. Science, so-called, quote unquote, being the center of their discourse. And these are their common distinctives. This is damn near comprehensive. I wouldn't really say comprehensive like every point, but this is more than enough. It's more than sufficient. Right? Anti-theism, metaphysical materialism, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. I think the like the birthplace or the point of contention that like brings in these ideologies is this idea of objectivism versus subjectivism, or what is objective versus subjective. And you see people like these modern day like atheists, for example, or liberals, they would make these claims where objective truth doesn't exist. Like it's truth is always subjective, things like that, which can be easily defeated by again, like
itself
a study, a philosophical study of truth and objective versus subjective and what that means. It's
The
very
notion
simple.
defeats itself.
Yeah, like I don't know if this is really
they themselves would agree and actually believe in objective truths, but in a rhetoric they would deny them.
Right.
Well, I don't know if this
on
is
face
perfectly
value.
like this analogy, like how this completely links in, and it might sound kind of just simple, but here's like a wild kind of hypothetical analogy. So the sky is blue when it's daytime, and then it goes to a dark blackish looking at night, and then blue, etc. Of course, there can be slight variations of blue, but for the most part, we all know it's like the blue sky versus the night sky. What if someone said, and that would just be like the objective truth, let's say that is. Now, what's causing it, why it exists, that's another thing, but just that it is blue and then black, blue, black, day and night. But what if someone then said, well, hey, I have this philosophy that the blue sky is God. That's God up there. And we only see God for half the day. He's going around, he visits us in the day, and then he leaves at night, and he comes back in the day. If someone were to do that, they could potentially build an entire philosophy, religion off of the blue sky is God. And they could come up with all kinds of ideas for it. They could even use like spectroscopy and other things, that measure, different or take luminance readings, and they could say, we're measuring God, we're measuring God. Now that would be the subjective, that they're putting that onto it, a whole philosophy.
Exactly.
But potentially they could get a bunch of people believing that and then thinking that, oh no, the blue sky is God, as if it actually is.
Yeah, what you've
right
done,
point.
you've
Exactly.
touched upon the fact that there's such a thing as synthesis and association, right? Which is why I keep exposing it every time they do it. What they do is they conflate all these different empirical facts and routine applications we do, and they spout this rhetoric as though it's the exclusive product of their worldview or the application of their worldview, when it's not. When their worldview subsists or consists of all these distinctives that are laid out here, and all this is not only unverified, not only false, not only refuted, but undermines the very possibility of knowledge. So no, a worldview that undermines the very possibility of knowledge is not at all necessary to achieve any applications at all.
And that would have
Right.
to be the unraveling for many of these folks who believe it and they think, how could it not be this thing, the globe and all that, because all this evidence seems to be so. But like when they, in my viewpoint, end up breaking down how it's not the truth, like however many will go on the journey entirely. Some people might just leap off of it once it's more known, like on the, once this kind of spell is dispelled and the kind of deception layers come down. People may just kind of jump without actually going through the process. But if they go through the process, they'll have to figure out, okay, how was I wrong? Basically, like, was the evidence wrong? Was the philosophy wrong? And how was the evidence applied to the philosophy that might have seemed compelling because, oh my gosh, it really fits that philosophy. And then the rest of the world is telling you that that's the case too, with all pictures from space or whatever too. But they would have to break down like, where the assumptions were and how it was actually based on a philosophy and not on actual reality. Because if they came to the wrong conclusion through that.
Yeah, and it's a knowledge based thing. Like you need to be aware of these things, and that's why I think it's to hold that position of, let's say, a ball or a globe is an ignorant position. You do not have the facts. When you talk to these people in general, they do not have all the facts, and they will conflate and misconstrue and misunderstand positions logically and philosophically that they will end up in. And that's the 99% of people, like they're not cognizant of their position.
Or like mind-boggling to me.
That's why I call it myopy. That's why I call it myopic. Like myopism is to have such a concentration, a narrow concentration of your perspective, to the flagrant, faulty exclusion or ignorance.
Wow,
of
there's a
everything
lot of
else.
gaslighting going on there.
That's what that is.
There's gaslighting because we don't do that.
They'll have stop. It says it where they'll put on like
Gas
some
requires a
glasses,
container.
right?
Requires containment, correct? And the
damn, like,
containment
you
is
hear
by
me
virtue
talking,
of
bro.
its weight.
Hold on,
I know,
dude.
I
Can I respond?
Guys, hold on. He was in the middle of speaking. First of all, he's not gaslighting a human. If anything, he's pointing out, like, I mean, if you want to link it to gaslighting, potentially how the philosophy or the model has like a gaslighting component to it, either by trying to make, well, either that the model itself is crazy and they're trying to pass that to other people. I mean, there could be some link to gaslighting, but he's not gaslighting anyone, in the moment. Anyways, can we just let him?
He's gaslighting everybody. He's saying they have that. He even gave it a term, mono something.
My criticism is painful. Now he
Yeah, but he's giving a critique on the overall model. If anything, the people who are pushing it, if it is who he's critiquing, not like you, anyone who believes it.
Oh, yeah, but everybody's being gaslit by him, saying that they focus on one, they ignore everything else.
He's
that was
still
that one
doing it.
statement he made.
He thinks,
my contention
well, I'm the
is that,
scientist.
we
I'm
talk
right.
about
He
every
must
one
be
of
wrong.
them. The gas.
Can we just
the
let him
gas
finish at the minimum? Can we just let him finish, and then you can respond if you have to? But can we just let him finish? Sure. If you want to critique his critique, fine. But you interrupted him. Can we just let him finish? Go ahead.
He won't stop.
Just prove my point, right? No self-discipline. Nothing in their worldview that promotes them to have the attitude that says, okay, I should act in these ways regardless of my impulses or whatever, what have you. They don't have that in the worldview. So they just do whatever they please. And that includes what I was just talking about, right? This myopic, erroneous, or this myopic, faulty focus that they do. They'll concentrate on one particular thing or a small handful of things, and they'll just neglect so many other things that are necessary to sufficiently understand whatever given issue. That's myopic.
That's my point exactly. Go ahead, Zanick.
Thank you. Yeah, the myopic, ironic. I mean, come on. No, when we talk about gas pressure
Said nothing about
without
irony.
a container, we always say no, there is containment. And that containment is by virtue of air having weight. And that is attracted to the earth like everything else. It all falls at 9.8 meters per second squared. And it has a force behind it if it's not moving. And that's what causes the containment. That's why we have hydrostatics. And they have full courses, many courses in college dedicated strictly to the qualities of hydrostatics. So there's that. Talk about rotation. We talk about everything we talk about here. I mean, the thousands of topics we bring up here all the time. We address every one of them. There's no myopic focus at all to deflect or to ignore things that we can't, or you think we don't understand. We, as in anyone that's against your position, we all have arguments, and we all, I think, do a pretty good job of making our points. But to start down that gaslighting road of like we're right, more right than you guys because you deflect and look at other things and you're too myopic. No, that's just unfair, and it is gaslighting.
Well, yeah,
So
I
what he's
agree
done is
with
just
you,
prove that he
Zanick,
doesn't
but
understand the
I don't
critique.
think I don't think he actually labeled a certain like he didn't label you, for example, unless
I
you saw
started by
yourself in
saying
that
that, not us,
label.
everybody.
He's talking about the
Well,
paradigm. The paradigm.
yeah,
So
We're talking about a
Zach
general
just
pattern
wanted to
that
be
people who
offended.
believe this worldview. Right. He just
I
wanted to
think
be
that
offended.
I was
And he
offended.
didn't
I
even
got my
understand the
pennies in a
critique that I
wad.
said in the first place, right?
yeah. So
But he didn't
Zanick, do
understand
you,
the critique. And so it obviously emotionally disturbed him. But he was just so provoked and so indignant that he
There's
just had to say
gaslighting
something.
and some insults too. Okay, go ahead.
If you don't
Yeah,
know what
why are you
gaslighting
talking
is, I'm
about
gonna tell you
him
what gaslighting
now?
is.
Like,
Wait,
Because he
watch.
can't
so
help
just
himself.
Watch.
It-
so I
I'm
got,
gonna teach you what gaslighting is.
He's a
Watch.
projectionist. He's a
Gaslighting
projectionist.
is to provoke people
No,
to
it's not provoking.
doubt the
It doesn't have to provoke
reliability of
anything.
their intellect.
That's
That's what
incorrect.
gaslighting is. Yes, it is. It's to provoke people to doubt the reliability
Not to
or
provoke.
competency of their consciousness or their intellect. I'm not doing that.
I think I agree with that definition. I think that is the definition of gaslighting.
Well, also I think
It
of
is literally that.
yeah, it did sound correct to me as well.
I think of it as like tactics to manipulate someone to question their own sanity. So it's like a
Make them
manipulation.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Yep.
more or less what I was saying as well. But yeah, I definitely accept that definition.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
You were. You're talking about how
He wasn't
they're
manipulating
focusing
anyone.
to this, to that. You're
No, dude, but
making everybody who
specifically,
argues that you're right. You know what? As a globe earther, we're so focused on things we are knowledgeable. We will ignore everything else that's kind of out of our realm of understanding or maybe comprehension, so we can try to win these arguments. No, that's gaslighting everybody. That's not on your side. Is to start questioning themselves that maybe we
This is
don't
the
understand
irony,
it.
right?
And someone
So he's
threw
gonna
out
talk to
gas
me.
pressure without a
He's gonna
container,
talk to
and I
me
jumped in and said, "No, we talk
as
about
though I
that.
haven't
We talk about
experienced him doing
everything."
that.
He wasn't
That's
finished,
the irony.
Gregory.
Of course, he
That's
doesn't
the
understand.
irony. He's
And
going to
you have no
dictate to
discipline
me
yourself. How ironic
my
that you claim other
observations
people
that I
don't have
described.
It
discipline.
just
Because you
shows
don't
that
have
he's not
discipline.
listening to
okay.
you prior to when he
So
says
That's the
things
irony.
either.
we're just
That's the
dictating and
irony.
finger
He's
wagging
trying
at
to
this point.
dictate to me what I've experienced in the years I've been debating dozens upon dozens of these adherents of scientism. That's the irony. He's gaslighting me in my recollection, in my reiteration of my descriptions of my observations in my participations of these debates.
That's incorrect. Also,
So,
I've given
like,
you
I think we
solid.
can.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I mean, you guys are just going to start. You're just finger wagging at each other and calling each other names at this point. So I'm going to try to establish this into a question and a conversation as best I can. And this is going to be pointed at Zanick. Do you think that science solves the human problem? I'm being very concise, but presumably you understand what the human problem is. You're welcome to sort of ask the question about that or whatever.
I would love to hear about.
Do you think he's going to ask the question about it? Just define what it is.
Well, no, because I mean, this is what science was set out to do initially when Francis Bacon was, going about it, right? He wanted to reduce the amount of myth and superstition within humanity in order to essentially sort of get at the heart of reality.
So you're saying the human problem is myth and superstition?
Well, so yeah, this is what the science was initially set out to do. This is what the whole time of the Illumination was said to be about,
Exactly.
right? And then what we're trying to point out. Yeah. But what we're trying to point out effectively is that, well, if the science is being used in such a way that it is causing these gaslighting things that you can't trust your own human senses, right? Then what I'm putting forward is that if science proposed itself initially as to be a remedy to the human problem, that of the creation of myth, men being liars, gamblers, so like if you had a powerful person with a delusion, they might be able to influence a lot of people around them. So science was trying to remove that problem, essentially. But what we actually find in reality is that, well, this scientific method is actually seemingly contributing to a lot of superstitions and creating a lot of myth. We've seen this
Oh
in
no,
like the false
Zanick,
scientific
I hope you don't mind
claims.
if I come in here to just point out the fact that when something is accepted within scientific consensus, it means that it's been replicated independently from the original claim, right? That's what we're talking about here.
That's not necessarily an intelligent at all.
Do you
Was
think
that Rich speaking,
do you
or was
think
that like an
science
alien from another planet talking?
does science solve the human problem? Is what I'm trying to get at. Like,
No,
right back to the
I would
start.
say
Science
no.
is
I would say
science
no.
does a good job
That's what I would
of
say.
eliminating lies, because if someone can't follow your experiment to a T and get the same result, there's an
That's
issue.
not a human problem.
The vast
I
majority of your
wanted to
world
point
is
out
invested
something
in
that
He
English
said
somebody
that
science,
just
he
bro.
said
mentioned.
that he said that the human problem was this superstition and myth overtaking it, and science was supposed to solve this. And what I'm saying
Yeah,
is
it's
that
problems
having
like
an independent
inequality, for
body
example.
as like a
For example,
scientific
yeah,
journal with peers
yeah.
reviewing the papers and doing the
That's the
experiments that are
problem,
being
though,
put out.
Rich.
The vast
That's
majority
a
of the
problem.
distinctives of your
That's a
worldview
problem,
don't
though,
even
Rich, because
apply
the
that method.
original science, Gregory, I know you heard me trying to get in. Thank you. Original science is not based on consensus-based science, bro. So I don't know where you got that from, Rich, but that's current modern science. That's not original denotative science.
Right.
Yeah.
So when people were first starting to do science and like make a repository of knowledge, right? And then people started doing science and building upon that knowledge. It's still all science. It doesn't matter that it's not the original version of it. It's still science.
As
It says
opposed
you
to
people.
religion.
You don't
Yeah,
have
but
any
it doesn't
As
hold
opposed
to
to
any
religion.
sort of.
Thank you, Zanick.
You're welcome.
It doesn't hold to any sort of
according
Hellenic
to you.
rationalist. All right, fuck.
No, he made a good point there, and I will argue the consensus thing too, because there are a lot of science even today that has scientists on both sides. There might be more or less on. It doesn't mean one of them is more right than the other, because really it goes down to what they're actually claiming, who's actually agreeing with them, that kind of thing. So things that are debatable.
I don't.
There are a lot
No,
of.
that's
exactly
not.
why
That's
I
not
mocked
truth.
In my world,
That's not a fact. That's not a fact. Truth is yeah. Now, truth is
what did I say?
doesn't. I don't know why you keep interrupting me, bro.
Because you said I was not a fact. What's not a
Stop.
fact?
He's about to talk, dude.
But-
True was
Yeah,
independent.
the
answering
fact.
It
you.
does seem like I can go back and forth. I think pretty easily.
He's
What do you mean?
answering
Shut up,
you.
Zanick.
What I'm trying to tell you is truth is independent from consensus.
That's what I said. I started out by saying that. That's why I questioned
And
you.
I would just like
Yeah,
to also
Dicelo,
point out.
I
I
brought
would
this
just
up
also like to
earlier.
point out that science is not settled. It's never settled.
Right.
Yeah.
No, so then you don't know
So
anything.
science doesn't deal
That's
with
not
that. So,
maybe under your epistemology, Gregory.
But to
Where you just
Dicelo's point,
take an
one
assumption and run with
scientist
it.
and the claim
You
that
just don't
Zanick
know
made, one
anything. Simple,
scientist
period. That's it.
is
You would just assume one thing and
more
then think you
incorrect
can
than
get
the other
knowledge
one.
from it.
I would like to
okay,
get in.
let me ask this. Let me ask this in a general sense. Okay. Does science deal with objective truth?
What do you mean by objective truth?
Objective
Obviously, he
truth
doesn't know what that means.
is
No,
independent of stance, i.e., it's
no.
independent
Modern
of your
science does not deal with.
feelings, your thoughts,
I don't-
whatever it
Modern
is.
science does
Yeah,
not deal
then
with
yeah,
absolute.
then yes, it does,
Hold
because it
on.
deals with the universe or like the
No, give
demonstrable
me.
nature.
If you're going to appeal to that, you got to give me an absolute. Then give me an example of an absolute in your world science.
Yes. I already gave
The
it.
One known
We were talking
proposition.
about this earlier,
One
right?
known
Like
proposition.
1 + 1 is an axiomatic truth.
1 + 1
in
doesn't exist in
all
nature, though, Egypt. That's the problem. This is
Yeah,
a
it's
convention.
axiomatic. Hold on. It's axiomatic. But
Yeah.
it's true regardless. In any possible world, 1 + 1 must equal 2. Okay? That is a necessary truth. I.e., it is necessary and
I don't think that's
it is true in every possible world.
No, that's the problem, though, bro. Is we're talking about science is dealing with nature, natural phenomena, natural observed phenomena, right? We've predicated off of that, right? So if we're to stick to that, math doesn't exist in nature. This is a convention that we use in reality to help decipher what's going on. But there's no 1 + 1 anywhere in the universe that you can point to. It just doesn't exist. It's an arbitrary thing that we've devised to help us understand reality.
That's wrong.
There was something that was spoken earlier that all sciences, peer-reviewed sciences, are legit. I got a phrase that I want to bring up: replication crisis. It's legitimate.
Thank you for those 2 words.
You're welcome.
Yeah, but so anyways, like with the issue of consensus, that's all they have in their worldview, right? Just a bunch of animals flailing around, flopping around this lopsided rock in the midst of a cosmic black void. So what they have at best is, well, we think arbitrarily with no objective way to know, this many of people who agree with this doctrine is right, and they're the standard. That's what that is.
In order to know something, Gregory, it has to reach a particular threshold of confidence. That's what it means to know for me. What does know mean to you?
That's subjective, though.
As though you have any objective rules of
subjective.
inference. As though you have any objective universal rules of inference. You don't. What you have is just a bunch of matter
can you
flailing
show
around
me
in a
that
cosmic
anyone
void. That's what you have.
objectively knows anything?
Yeah,
That's the problem in your worldview.
That's what I said. I said
hang on,
1
let it
+
stick.
1.
Let it land. Wait. Let it land. That's the problem in your worldview. What you have in your worldview is there's just a bunch of matter flailing around in a cosmic void.
Feel the
That's what your
ridicule
worldview
again.
is. You don't have objective universal rules of inference.
Yep, we create those.
Right. It's just
as
your
labels
contrivances
for the universe. So we do have those.
Right. So it's just your contrivances. As far as you know, given that, you don't know
I
anything.
feel the ridicule again.
No, you're just yapping back. I'm reiterating your worldview back at you. Your worldview is
No, you're just
even if I grant
ridiculing
you,
it.
even
You're
if I grant you a
ridiculing
whole
it
load
without
of
actually
presuppositions,
pointing out
even if
an
I grant
issue
you, even if I
with the
grant you,
position.
even if I grant you a whole load of philosophical presuppositions where you can actually have humans as we are today with all their opinions, all you have is a bunch of humans that haphazardly coalesced in some indeliberate process of evolution, spouting and yapping their
Feel the
opinions.
ridicule again.
That's what you have. That's what it is. That's your worldview.
You're just ridiculing it. You're not actually
You
making
don't
an
like
argument
that I'm
against
saying
it.
You don't like the rhetoric
can I-
that's accurate to your worldview.
No, you're just
Gregory,
it's not actually a point.
Yeah.
You're just you're throwing in words like haphazardly and flailing
That's your
about
worldview.
just
You don't
to
like the rhetoric.
ridicule it. Why? It's not adding
I
anything
don't
to the
care.
argument
You don't
to
like
say
the rhetoric.
that.
That's your issue. You don't like the rhetoric with which I described your worldview.
It would be akin
It's
to
still
me
accurate.
talking about Jesus and pointing out he was a virgin.
It's still accurate. You don't like the ridicule. You don't like the rhetoric, but it's accurate. That is
Not
worldview.
accurate.
And so is Jesus being a virgin, but it doesn't add anything whether or not it's true.
As though what are you doing with that reply? Your worldview is there's just a bunch of humans who more or less agree with various doctrines. Some humans, most humans agree with these doctrines. And then there's these other humans that agree with these doctrines, and another group of humans agree with these doctrines, et cetera, et cetera. That's all you have in your worldview. That's what you have.
And is that an issue?
Obviously, you just have a bunch of humans with
what's
conflicting
the
opinions
issue with that?
without any objective universal rules of inference.
And what's the issue with that?
You don't have any higher authority in your worldview above the humans to actually discern what is true or not. It's obviously a problem.
Oh, no, you're just saying the same thing over and over and over again and saying that's a problem. That's not
There is
actually
no
a
other
response.
epistemic
I
standard for you
wasn't
to
done.
adhere
I wasn't done. That's not actually a response when someone's asking you what is the issue with there not being a higher authority from which you derive objective truth.
I told you the issue. I said it to you. You just whined and complained.
So, and if, well, like, obviously, I would say, well, as I said at the beginning of this conversation, actually, the entity which determines whether or not something is true or false is the universe.
That's not a single entity.
Yes, it is.
Wrong.
The universe is
is not
a singular
entity.
universe.
No, it isn't. The sum
Yes,
total of all
it is.
things that is the universe. the sum total of all things that is the universe denotatively is not a single particular.
Do you know what happens when you have more than one of a thing,
Gregory, you're a part of the
You
universe,
add
and
an
Rich is
S
also
to
part
the
of the
end,
universe. So I kind of see
or
what
you
you're saying.
use a
there. You
plural
guys are gonna
form.
create-
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. No tanks, dude. Please just give them a minute to go back and forth. Rich, carry on.
Well, I think other
Like,
people.
what
like,
is
I
what
think-
is the etymology of universe, Gregory?
From the Latin universitas, all things. So yeah, if you want to go to there, from the Latin universitas, all things. So the sum total of all things is not a single particular.
So in Latin, uni means.
Are you going to try to warp the morphology of universitas?
In Latin. I'm not talking
I
about
think you might be cutting out.
universitas. I wasn't talking about universitas. I was talking about universis.
No, universe comes from the Latin universitas.
No, it doesn't.
You don't know etymology. He tried to go to etymology.
I just looked it up. I just looked it up. Late Middle English from Old French, univers.
What is this on? This is the universe is your authority to tell you.
Is the universe a single entity, Gio?
There's actually
So are you going to acknowledge
there's actually a thing called the time
and a single particular? Because that's where we're at now.
There's actually a thing. Can you guys
hold on, you guys? Everybody's going at once. First of all, I'm not really in the combo. I'm kind of trying to help Mod. I do think Egypt was trying to get in. No Tanks was trying to get in. If you guys were going back and forth real quick, I don't know if you want to let some other people get in. Jeremy's trying to get in, but
let me wrap it up in a tight little bow first. Uni in Latin means one, and when we're talking about the universe, it is a singular entity. So if Gregory's problem is that I'm not relying on one entity to determine what's true or false, that's obviously false, because I do refer to the universe as to what is true or not true.
Okay, so stop talking. This is the refutation. He's obviously ignoring the difference between a single composite, which is a plurality of particulars in relation with each other, which is the universe, with single particulars, discrete particulars. That's what he's doing. He's just going to use one thing and ignoring the fact that the one thing he's referring to is a composite which consists or subsists of components, a plurality of components. That's what the universe is. It's a composite of a plethora of discrete particulars.
Yeah, Gregory, what I was going to get into was when I was speaking of axiomatic truths, like axioms, like the 1 + 1. That is not a physical thing. It does not exist within his universe that he's talking about, because that is axiomatic. It exists within a mind. And because it's a necessary truth, the only way it's grounded is through a necessary mind, right?
Yep.
You know, does that make sense to everybody?
Perfect sense.
Yeah. So are you saying the universe has a mind and is a necessary mind?
The universe
That was
has
my
to have a
question.
mind because it's named itself.
It's named itself.
Yeah.
Everything named everything?
The brain
Wait,
named
hold on,
itself.
hold on.
Everything named everything?
The brain named itself. Right?
You're ignoring the question. The universe is everything.
Naming itself.
Yeah, he's ignoring the
From brain
question.
name
The universe is
Yep.
everything. So he said the universe named itself, which entails everything named everything.
Yeah, because
It's
we
obviously
are
wrong.
a part of everything.
It's obviously wrong. Not to everything named everything.
Well, I agree to disagree, because I would say that we are made of components of the
Yeah, I agree
universe.
you're wrong.
Therefore, we are a part of a component, or we are part of the universe, and therefore are the universe. And
Maybe
we
this
get
would take
named
you down
it.
a different, like a different path, like
Yeah.
maybe a different conversation or something like that. Like, but in that idea that everything is one thing, then how did all the oneness start to distinguish itself from itself to become the many different things in your
Very
world,
simple.
Rich?
Very simple. Just go to a Catholic mass. 1 equals 3, so you get
Oh,
plurality from
wait.
singularity.
So you're a monist. You're a monist? Yes or no? Evan, you're a monist, right?
Who are
Yes or
you
no?
talking to?
I think he might be
Rich, you're a
agnostic.
monist, right? Yes or no?
I think he's agnostic. I'm guessing. What are you, atheist, Rich?
Wait,
Agnostic.
hang on. Because he's harping about oneness, one. That's the
I
rhetoric
think
of
he's talking to
monism.
no
Are you a
tanks.
monist? No, you, Rich. Are
What?
you a monist?
What do you mean by monist?
Dude, you don't recognize monism?
No.
God. So you
Well,
don't recognize a category that
why
you
did
evidently
you
seem to
why
belong
did you
into.
mention?
I mean, what is
Everything
your
is one.
opinion on the Phrygian scale, Gregory? Oh, you don't know about the Phrygian scale?
You're acting
Rich,
as though you know so much about philosophy, as though you know better than me. You don't know a basic category
When
of
did I
philosophy.
act? When did I? What do you want about? Why are you attacking me as a person instead of talking about what we're talking
So
about?
here we are, right? You're harping about one. The universe is one. It's the one, right? So do you believe there's only one single thing? Yes or no?
What a ridiculous question, man!
It's not a ridiculous question. This is
It's
an
like a
age-old.
completely non sequitur. Like it doesn't even
It's an
matter what I answer to
age-old.
that. Just
It's
seems
an
like a time.
age-old.
Like you're just trying to waste your time asking
It's an
stupid
age-old.
questions.
This question is an millennia-old issue. You're just unfamiliar with it.
Is there one thing?
Is there only one single thing? Yes or no?
What do you mean by thing?
You called it the universe. You yourself.
Yeah.
You
Calling it
the
a universe
That's what
and
he's
saying
asking.
we exist in a
Yeah, the
universe
one thing.
doesn't exclude
The one thing
multiverse.
that is everything.
Okay. So you don't believe that there's only one single thing, yes?
I have literally 2 fries in front of me. How could I say there's only one thing?
Great. I believe monism is asinine also. I just want to make sure. So
Yeah,
pluralism,
well, I
right?
mean, Trinitarianism is more confusing. That was my point.
You acknowledge
Exactly.
pluralism, yes?
No, it could all be
You acknowledge
one.
pluralism, yes?
It could all be one.
Yeah, if you're gonna believe random fairy tales, 1 can equal 3. Sure,
Do
it's
you
not that
acknowledge
you can't
pluralism,
think
yes or
1 can
no?
equal 3.
Like you're just not having the conversation. I mean, getting your position correct. Do you acknowledge pluralism, yes or no?
Jesus Christ.
He's kind of
You
just
gotta
laughing.
pray.
He's just
If
not
you
answering the
actually
question.
have a connection to your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and can talk to
He's just
him,
not answering
can
the
you
question.
please pray
He
and ask
obviously does.
for
All he has to do is
what
say
will
yes.
convince Rich
The question
Evans?
is simple.
The thing is,
Because if he can
Gregory,
give you something that would actually convince me, that would be great.
The thing is, hold on, Gregory. I think Rich is either atheist or agnostic from my memory, but I don't want to straw man him if he wants to say different. And you guys were talking a bit about like science, philosophy, and now like is it blending into like religion, spirituality, because etc. And I just don't think, from what I know, Rich, I don't think that he would be discussing like, like the Indian philosophy of Atman and Brahman and singularism versus the multiplicity. I think he was more like, you were pulling that from his like kind of analysis of like the universe being one. But what I'm saying is that I don't think he holds a position, from my understanding, on whether we're all one or whether there's multiple. Am I right, Rich? Like, it's not really like you wouldn't be holding that position either way.
I don't assert the existence of Brahman or any other deity.
Yeah, if he would just
Yeah, here's the
engage my
thing.
scrutinizing questions instead
Yo,
of just
can
talking
you hear
around
me right
them,
now?
we would expose that.
You got to get your mic fixed, bro. Oh, you stopped. Okay. There's a thing called the time force hypothesis. That's kind of brand new. It sounds just like the ether. It has everything as one. This is just one thing. Like all this stuff, the chair, the rocks, me, you, your oven, your fridge, everything's just one thing. And it's just doing different things in that spot. You know what I'm saying? To make a fridge, make you. It honestly sounds like, isn't that like kind of like what ether does?
So this is the point of all this, right?
You guys never heard of it? It's called the TFH, time force
Universal
hypothesis.
substrate is basically what you mean, right?
This is the point of all that.
Oh, Greg's gonna breeze right by this real quick and just get it back. Go ahead, Greg.
I mean, just the point of all that was he's acting as though he has an alternative, and he doesn't. His answer was the universe, but he's just obfuscating the fact that the universe is a plurality of things. Then I was trying to test to see if he's a monist or not. but then he denied monism. So now that's clear. He obviously acknowledges pluralism, but he just replies petulantly with these non-answers, just dancing around the issue instead of just saying yes. He obviously affirms yes.
And as a reminder, like the reason he pulled that out was, I think he was asked, what is it that you reference to know, to access what is true? And he said,
right,
the universe. So
right.
Yep.
That was the main issue. So his alternative is just the universe, which is the superlative of ambiguity. He doesn't appeal to everything strictly whatsoever to discern what is true or false. He doesn't do that. No one does that. No one ever does that at all. And it's not even possible.
You understand that when I say the universe,
the answer to me maybe it's not,
and something
really
that
like
would be equivalent to me answering with the word universe would be to say the natural state of affairs.
What about like the truth? Like, how do you know?
That's
like,
not an
that's what it sounds like you're saying. It sounds like you're saying like the truth. Like the way I know what is true is I reference what is true.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't seem like it's, yeah.
Circular.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that my epistemology is dependent upon things that are demonstrable within reality. I'm saying the exact opposite of what you're saying.
The material things are not. It's not an epistemic standard.
No, he is giving a. I mean, Rich, would you call yourself a materialist?
It'd be methodological naturalist.
Yeah.
Yeah. The material things, which is what you're referring to, the plurality of material things is not an epistemic standard. It's a category error.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, Greg, like my example that I brought up earlier, right? An axiom, right? Something like math, like 1 + 1. Rich, how do you explain that in your worldview? Like,
leave Rich alone, you monsters.
Let me ask
no,
you this.
I'm okay. No, thanks. You don't have to save me this time. I take math to be an abstract concept.
I'll ask the question, okay? Is 1 + 1 always equal to in all possible worlds? And why? If it's a yes or no.
You could take two.
Well, I take math to be an abstract concept just as much as any other language. I don't take it to be universal in that regard. I don't know that it would extend that far. I don't think it would be impossible that 1 + 1 = 2 in all possible universes.
Yeah.
Well,
but
I mean,
I'm not of the position that it would be necessary.
Well, as a materialist,
well,
let me just say this real quick, briefly. If you have like two like clay mud balls, like like the type of material you can kind of make it into like a ball, and it's not. It doesn't just. Anyways, you have two kind of clay mud balls, basically. You have two, and if you combine them, you know what I mean. You have one in one in one hand, one in the other, and if you smush them together and you make one clay ball, I mean that is materialistically 1 + 1 = 2.
No, that's a particular. Those are two material.
Let me put it.
That's not just. My point is, it's not just an abstract mathematical whatever. That's actually like.
It's not. It's axiomatic. It's a truth, and it's an objective truth axiomatically, because of other logical laws, like the law of identity. Like, do you believe in the law of identity? Do you think that's a law, or do you think it could break down somehow? Do you know what the law of identity is?
One of the axioms or presuppositions you could call it, that I hold to is that the laws of logic function in a way that they function in a way that won't change. I don't think that they will, they are capable of changing, but I just assume as much. I couldn't prove to you that they can.
And 1 + 1 is a result of that actual truth.
Yeah, you can take the law of identity and say one thing plus one of the same thing equals 2. Yeah. I get that.
Exactly.
But to what Geo said, it is entirely arbitrary that you are labeling it as 1 and 1. You could equally label those as 0.5 plus 0.5 making 1. Or any other number. So from my position, I wasn't done, man. I'm not. Yeah, I wasn't done.
Yeah, I'm saying
from my position. It's a concept created by human minds in order to label quality.
Yeah, but
sorry, quantity, not quality. Quantity.
Yeah, I hear you. The language and wording, like you could call them something that's not 1 and 2. I hear you on all that. That's like somewhat arbitrary when getting into the language.
No, that's not what I was saying,
But
Gio.
but what I'm saying is that in terms of quantity, I mean, the thing is, my example
A
is
equals
a little bit
A, right? Sorry.
well, like technically, if you have 2 mud balls though, and you squish them together, you could just say you have 1 bigger ball, or you could say you now have 2 because you combined. Like it'll weigh double, like it'll weigh twice. You know, so if you want to say it's twice the weight, then it equals 2. But yeah, I mean, whatever you
No,
call
but then
it.
you like, but to label it as 1, right? It can equally and just as viably be labeled as 0.5.
Call it A. Yeah, you can call it A.
But I'm keeping it as a number for a reason. Keeping it as a number for a reason. It can be labeled as 0.5 plus 0.5, making 1
we get it.
full mud ball.
Yeah,
Okay, let me ask you this in this.
All right. Well, listen, me first, because I said to maybe the Geo first before you said it. But I wanted to, like, in regards to the law of identity, like that people are referencing, that a thing is equal to itself in its location. Wouldn't it be a violation of the law of identity to say that this one thing can also be the same as another thing? It would be changing its identity.
I'm not saying that at all, and I don't understand your question.
Well, I mean, the law of identity that this mud ball is equal to itself. Right, so and then somebody saying, well, 1 plus another 1 of itself, so now it has 2 identities or 2 locations, the same identity. I don't see how that's.
Well, no, because if you're actually holding to the law of identity, that 1 mud ball is different than the mud ball that is next to it. It's not exactly one of the same thing.
That's what I'm pointing out.
The point. Yeah.
I think kind of what I was alluding to.
So then,
is just
yeah,
if
then
you have-
then you can't call. Then it's not like. Then it's not 1 plus 1.
1 plus 1 equals 2.
No, because then it's not 1. As soon as you say it's not A plus A, then your side's fucked.
No, you're fucked, right? So what you've done,
Thanks, Gregory.
What you've done is you asserted a nominalistic notion. That's what you've done. Nominalism collapses into subjectivism and skepticism.
You think you miss Gregory's stilted speech until you hear it again.
Yeah, like if I had an A or a mud ball or whatever we're using as this thing to reference, right?
Wait, because he's just glossing over this devastating refutation, right? He asserted a nominalistic notion.
All right, let's
nominalism, right, is the notion that names are just names, that names don't actually refer to what things really are. Okay, so for instance, with Egypt's example, when you refer to the category that is 1 or any other numerical category, the word 1 is just a denominational taste. You're not really calling this category what it is. It's just a word that you synthesize to the concept and then articulate in so many other words. That's what he's doing. So when I call him rich, for another example, I'm not really calling him what he is. I'm not correctly identifying him. It's just a name that I've associated to this particular material thing with his flappy arms and his squishy flesh moving about the earth.